put it on any of the social medias?
I'm doing it now.
Okay, cool.
Need to go.
If we get to paste it in the server, and I'll put it on.
Yep.
If I can copy it somewhere, I'll put it on my stories or whatever. So yeah.
Should I tag everyone or not? Or am I tagging everyone too much?
No, I don't think. Fuck it. If you gotta leave, then you gotta leave because we tagged you too goddamn much. It's not like the amount that some other podcast Discord servers tag people.
Where is our link? There it is. Cool. We're live, right?
Yeah, we are live. I'll copy that and put it on the Facebookies. On my stories. But you're welcome to talk.
Yeah, so like one of the things that always pops up in the board game barbecue community, like the Facebook group, and I'm sure it happens in the board game group too, is like someone's gonna ask the question, what's your unpopular board game opinion? Right?
Right.
It's like all the time this comes up, like every week that they will write this. And it's just funny, right? Because you're really doing that because you want to know who hates the game that you hate. Like that's really all it is.
You
isn't
think
it?
so? I don't know. It's pretty dumb.
But no, like it's to get something original, someone to say something original or whatever. But the thing is that no one ever really does. Like we think that we have original ideas and opinions, but there's just too many people out there. Of course, someone's going to agree with our non-popular opinion, and then it just sounds silly because it's like that's not unpopular. Most of them are like that's not unpopular. There are so many people.
Opinion. That's a popular opinion.
There are lots of people that don't like that game or like whatever, and it's just. I guess it's kind of sad that we crave this. Like we want to be original, we want to be a unique snowflake, but when we go out of our way to like prove that we are, we end up doing the opposite.
The same shit.
Yeah.
Well, it's that thing where people don't know how to connect anymore, and they assume that like connecting negatively is a positive way to connect. It's like
but that's us, babe. Wait, what?
Well,
I feel attacked right now. That's us.
No, I think we're doing a service in pointing out some of the board game hypocrisy and some of the I think the board game industry has not gotten a chance to really grow with time. It's relatively new, and because it's relatively new, it's going to go through growing pains, and part of that growing pains is how do we connect with other people in our community? Well, one way is to think that board games are teams, like we're playing like soccer or football or American football or whatever. Like there's a team here, and then I've got to hate somebody else from another team. So the one way to do that is to say why the other team sucks. And one way to do that is call a board game a team, but there's so few. Like, you could either look at it, there's so many goddamn teams, or there's so few fans of each team. Either way, it's the same fucking thing. But it comes down to, I don't think it's a good idea to form connections with people you do not know, unless
on
it's
a negative note.
Yeah, on a negative note. I don't think it's good to say like, if you don't like Frosthaven, you're a bitch. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of fucked up. I think that the best way is to say the things you like or whatever. And I argue about this all the time in real life. I'm like, why don't you just say positive shit for a little bit? Just like it's too easy to be negative. It's hard to be
Right.
positive because when you're positive, the easy the easy angle is, well, I don't like it, and then you have to defend your position. Where if you say I don't like it, you can answer a position which is I just don't like it. Like that's easier to say than, well, I just like it. Then you can say, well, you're just stupid. If you don't, I don't know. I just think that the negative angle is easier to do, and it's an easier angle to defend, and you're less likely to have to defend it.
Really?
I think so.
I don't
I
think
mean,
that's true. I've had to defend my not liking of games, especially like Castles of Burgundy. People have come at me for that. They have come at me for that. I swear to
if you
God.
like
It's
it, well,
like, no, no,
fucking,
no.
you better
Explain
get the
what you
fuck
don't
out of.
like.
Oh well,
Explain what
I
you
was
don't like.
I was fixing to say, if you like that game, get the fuck out of this podcast, or whatever the fuck this is, because I don't like that game for shit.
Defend it, Mo. Why don't you like it, Mo?
Because
Uh,
I don't know any better.
this should be easy. This should be easy for you.
It
You
is
just said
easy,
it's
but
easy
I
to.
don't want to. I don't want to aggravate people. I don't want to say how much I don't like it. I can just say it's not a game for me. Of all the
Yeah.
like in the list of Felds, it's on his bottom. It's not the worst game he's ever made, but it's
Hmm.
the worst game that is highest rated.
It's the worst game that's the highest rated. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's fair.
Um. Okay, so whenever you post a thing online and you say, "What is your most like unpopular opinion?" Whatever, no fuck.
Yeah.
I have read through so many, and it is so rare when there is a unpopular opinion that I actually find unique. You
Hmm.
know, like or something that actually makes you think. And maybe that was the original design of the post. Like the original design is to find something very unique that you've never thought about before.
Hmm.
But by this time, most people are pretty generic with what they have
Hmm.
to say. It's kind of like in nerddom,
Yeah.
if a movie comes out that is sci-fi or a series comes out in sci-fi, I'm going to see it on my feed because I'm in nerddom.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to
You're
find
deep
unique
in that.
ideas. Yeah. It's hard to find unique ideas in that world.
Right. Right.
And I'm not saying necessarily that they're not unique people. It is that obviously something drew them to nerddom, and that has to do with the commonalities, and some of those commonalities just overlap a little too much for me. I find
Yeah.
myself in nerddom. I wouldn't say by accident, but I would say
Yeah.
by um, fascination with stuff that's outside of what I normally like. So if you would go again, like if I'm hanging out with metalheads and we talked about what's something that you like that's unique to you as a metalhead, and then I could name some nerddom shit.
Hmm.
But if you said, okay, nerd, what what is some shit that you like outside of nerd shit, but that's still nerd adjacent, I would have a hard time. I have a hard
Right.
time even relating to other nerds or
Really?
geeks or
Well,
whatever.
see, this
Yeah.
is the funny thing is that you said before that it's easier to like meet people and like connect on positive stuff, but I feel like you and I connected on negative stuff. I feel
we're
like maybe
we're
I go
disgruntled.
I'll go looking for the negative people. I'm like, oh, I like this person because
Well,
they're not just
maybe if I said it was easier, maybe that was the wrong language to use. It is easier to say negative stuff than it is to
right.
say positive stuff. Maybe I don't know.
I don't
All
know.
I
I think
know.
we've spoken about this on the New Cubes briefly before because I do remember meeting someone and I don't know, I guess like the Dice Tower thing came up and
Mm,
they're like a huge enterprise and stuff like that and they're probably not really my favorite
right, right.
you know. And so I think I was pretty negative about just generally not wanting to not wanting to watch any of the Dice Tower stuff. But like, oh man, I don't even know. And I'm not talking about all. I'm talking about like the OG. I'm not
Hmm.
talking about because they've got associations with so many,
Right,
right?
definitely.
Different, like, because I think that our family plays games as part of Dice Tower Network now and stuff like that. So I'm not like
Oh
they're pretty
shit.
cool, but it's not like I hate everything that has that badge on it. But anyway, but then I could tell that I lost this guy. Like I could tell that he was like, I don't want to talk to this person anymore. And I think it was because I was so negative. I
Oh
just went on
yeah,
this like
yeah,
little bit of a rant and I was like, is this person
yeah.
okay? So yeah, so it doesn't always work.
Okay, so locally we have this guy that's trying to do a thing. His name is Ben, and he's trying to do the board game Bonanza, and he
Yeah.
hates Monopoly.
Right.
He
Right.
absolutely hates Monopoly, and he has these decals that has a Monopoly man, and it's got a line through it, and it says, "No, not like Monopoly." You know,
Right.
meaning I play games,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
not like Monopoly, whatever. And that's
Right.
his
Right.
his
Right.
thing. And like, I always think, you're trying to start a board game community because he wants to just
Yeah.
get a bunch of people together and eventually have a convention.
Right.
And we have it's a college town, so the people that you attract from the college are not going to be stationed there. They're temporary. They're going to
Right.
leave. They're going to come for a year, leave, maybe come for 4 years, leave. Like they're not your bread and butter. Your bread and butter are people who live there, and the people who live there are going to own Monopoly.
Right.
So like there was a couple of girls there last time, and they're sisters, and they're sitting there, and they were naming off some of the board games they own. They were new, so they didn't realize like most of us own too many games. We own like
Right.
plus 200 games. We're not going to list all the games we own. So they
Yeah.
owned maybe 20, 30 games. So they started listing the games they own and the games that they play regularly. And they listed, well, we own about 5 copies of Monopoly. And then they started naming off the copies of Monopoly. And they're like, here's a collector's version. Obviously, we have to have that. And, it's just this
That's
thing.
cute. That's
Yeah, it
cute.
is cute. It is cute. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. It's cool.
Which
You don't
sounds so
know.
super condescending. That's cute. Oh, no.
It's
No, because if you like a thing, you like a thing. Like, doesn't matter.
I am not anti
I know
Monopoly.
you're not. I know you're not.
But most
You're
people are,
pro.
and
You
they
you
think
love
that
Monopoly, man.
I wouldn't say love, but I'll
No, but
play
you're
it.
one of
I'll
those like
fucking
you'll
play
get
it.
defended. You'll be like, no one plays it right. If you play it right,
Yeah,
it's good.
yeah.
Blah
If
blah
you
blah.
play it right, it's decent, and if you don't, then either you're at the beginning of the board game hobby, or you haven't, in my opinion, delved deep enough into what Monopoly really is. In my
Right.
opinion. Someone's talking.
Yeah, Monopoly's slightly better with the correct rules. Yeah, I don't know if I've
Yes,
ever even
I
played it right. To be honest with you, I probably haven't.
I would say it's more
It's
than
been a
slightly
long
better,
time. It's been a
and
long time.
what the problem that it just bothers me when you use Monopoly as your platform to say, "Well, Monopoly sucks. We play better games than that." And I'm like, you are trying to get over the people who play Monopoly. It's not like you don't say the game they play sucks because you're gonna
Yeah,
lose half of them. Say,
yeah,
hey, here's some interesting other stuff that you might like that's shorter than Monopoly, and you can play more times, so you might dig it more, or you might dig it
yeah,
as much, and like get them
yeah.
into like use Monopoly as your gateway, not as you are a gateway
Yeah, it's
into
it's kind of
games.
weird that he's like it is a little bit weird that he's trying to start a group and then he's like going in with this like gatekeepery kind of
Right.
attitude, I guess.
It is that thing where you try to connect with people and you try to make a community, and it's okay. So this is different to think about, but imagine 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I'm interested in what they said in a second. 20, 30 years ago, you had clubs, and in those clubs, the exclusivity of the club was the interesting part, and you could be part of like locally we have something called the Kiwanis Club, and they do a lot of civic work. You have, if you remember, what were they, Flintstones? They had, I think they were like the Mammoth Club or something like that. These dudes
Right.
had this club, and the fucked up part was it exclusive to men, but they had these clubs and they would go and they'd be part of them. They'd be part of a community, right? And one part of the community is the exclusivity. And I think when you try to start a board game community, you think the exclusivity should be the type of game you like because you're a nerd. You like board games, so let's divide up the board games, and these are the games we want to like focus you towards.
Right.
Instead of saying, well, the difference is we like playing board games. That's the difference. We like
Yeah.
playing board games. We grew up playing board games from dominoes, mahjong to fucking Monopoly, Catan, Terraforming Mars. We like playing boards. We like to sit across from an actual human being and play something that is bought in a box and fucking play that game. That's the uniqueness. Not, hey, let's divide it up even further. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we can't help. That's what I'm saying, though. We can't help doing that. I think
Nerds
that
can't help
makes
but
us
nerd.
makes us feel more unique.
Well, I think
Yes.
that, well, yeah, but like,
You
it
can't
is-
help refining your taste, though, either. Like, if you're in a hobby for a really long time, you're going to refine your taste more and more and more and more and more and more.
Yes, but the counter to that is the unique person is in our hobby is not the inclusive person that like claims to be inclusive, and they're talking about inclusivity as being gender based or role based or any of that. No, the inclusivity is past that. The inclusivity is all board games. How about that being the inclusivity part? Like, I don't care what kind of human you are. We accept all board game people, all of you. You
Yeah.
fucking Monopoly motherfuckers. You people want to play
You're such a funny
Operation.
mouth.
You people want to play
That's the Monopoly that doesn't exist yet. Fucking Monopoly.
fucking Monopoly. Dude, I would buy
That
that
doesn't
one. I'm
exist yet,
sorry.
I don't want it.
That's the copy I want. The fucking Monopoly copy. But it can't have any curse words in the
Adults
actual
only
game.
one.
It's just on the cover. Anyway.
It's just censored. It's just blurred. The low chalk said, and you can be utterly abusive if people do things like you can sell at the same price. Property is as liquid as cash then. And then you optimize trying to purchase the spaces that surround every 7 spaces from Go. This is
This is
deep
serious
into it.
Monopoly strategy.
To optimize where people land, and then nobody wants to play with you anymore.
What's the name of who's the who wrote this?
The low chalk? The low
Okay.
yeah. I hope I'm saying that right.
The low chuck? The low chalk. Well, you need to shut
Thanks
the
for joining,
F up.
by the way.
You need to shut the F up. We don't need to be giving away our Monopoly strategies all
Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
it's Lachlan. It's Lachlan.
Oh, Lachlan's giving us all the tidbit. You need to be quiet with all that stuff, man.
This
We're
this
trying
makes sense. It makes sense that it's you, Lachlan, because
Yeah, because he knows
Analyzing-
games.
he analyzes
knows-
stuff.
Yeah, he is definitely on the
Crazy.
analytical side.
there's the train. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's got some reference to train in it. So I was actually going to joke about that. I was going to say what Ben should be doing is like people come liking Monopoly. It's like, oh, you like games with money? That's fine. Let's do 18xx. Let me show
Yeah.
you this. Let's go.
It's got trains too. It's got train
yeah,
stations.
yeah. The train's got money. Got fake money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about the whole dungeon crawler thing.
Oh yeah.
And
That's an interesting thought.
you were saying that it would be better to have non-dungeon crawlery people designing dungeon crawlers, and it might go somewhere.
Well, what I meant
really
by
crazy.
that is people who play Euros should work on designing dungeon crawlers and stop making it dungeon crawler The problem is that I think this
A la
is
Mage
just-
Knight, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's not a fucking Mage Knight and Ruinstone or whatever it is. The Martin Wallace one, is it? What's it called? I forgot. Martin Wallace made a
Can't stop
game,
moving my legs. Yeah.
and it's they don't fall under dungeon crawler to me. They are adventure
No, but you can.
games.
Yeah, but there's a
They're adjacent. I'll give
crossover.
you that.
Come on.
There's
Yeah,
an adjacent,
right.
but no, there's
Right.
no crossover. They're adjacent, and it has to do with depth.
Well,
of
I guess
field.
my point then is if you get a Euro designer to do a dungeon crawler, it won't be a dungeon crawler then.
No,
guess that's
they
what
can
I'm
do a
saying.
dungeon crawler, but usually when they sit down to do a dungeon crawler, they think much more broadly, and they end up making a fantasy adventure game.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what you get anyway. You get it. It's happened.
Yeah,
It's happened.
yeah. And
And-
those are great, freaking adventure games, but they're definitely not dungeon crawlers. I'm sure there are dungeon crawlers out there that are way more Euro-y. We just haven't played them because they're not epic enough. Because we're looking for also depth of strategy, depth of understanding. depth of scope within design. So like something really interesting that's different design wise, but does dungeon crawly instead of easy dungeon crawl done with Euro. That is to me is a waste of time.
Mm.
And I'm sure
Yeah.
that that space is wide. There's a lot of those. I'm sure there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
I hear the names of them all the time, and I refuse to play them.
You refuse to play them.
Yeah, I don't want to play a dungeon crawler that's on the same level as an easy uh, action selection game or worker placement game. I don't want to play that. I want to play
Hmm.
something that has depth of strategy, depth of understanding, depth of mechanics, but plays in the Euro scope. In the Euro scope.
Yeah. It's really hard though, right? Like, because as a designer, you start designing a game, and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm a Euro designer. I've designed all these Euro games, whatever. And then you go, I'm going to do a dungeon crawler. And people are like, oh, no, no one's going to like that. Like, the dungeon crawler people won't like it. The Euro
Right.
people won't like it. What are you doing? You don't know what you're doing. It's like I started with that, like playing around with that reverse train thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
and all I got was, oh, like you need to play more cube rail games to make it more like that. And it's like, but I
Right.
don't want. That's the whole point. Is that I don't
Right.
want to make it like that. I want to make it more Euro-y, or I want to make it how I want to make it, kind of thing. But then, who is your audience? I guess that's
Right. You have to decide who's your audience is, or
yeah.
if you're going to make it a
But you
new
don't have one.
audience.
You basically don't have one.
Right.
If
Right.
you're trying to create something new, you don't have one necessarily.
Right. But as soon as it gets labeled under whatever it gets labeled under, like let's
Yeah.
say you're making a game that is about reverse cube rails, and it has and the cube rail people get wind of it, and then they play it and don't like it.
And they
Well,
get their fucking
they're
pitchforks and stuff.
yeah, yeah, and then there's not a whole lot of space for that.
Hmm.
Um, which
I
this
can't
is
stop
the
moving my legs.
I noticed.
My chair is like, "Ah." Can't help it.
Why not? What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I just have that thing. Do you remember Michelle Wolf was like in her stand up? She was
Yeah,
saying, feel sorry for me because I've got this syndrome. She's got
yeah,
restless
yeah,
leg syndrome.
yeah. Restless leg syndrome. I remember my friend Brant used to say, he's still my friend, not old friend, but current friend Brant, been friend
Current
forever,
old friend.
current old friend, and he has that well, he used to say, I have restless leg syndrome. And I used to
Mm.
think, it's because you drink 6 Cokes a day, 6 Coca-Colas a day. It's all that fucking energy that you're getting
Caffeine, you're
from the
jacked up
caffeine.
on.
Yeah, it's not restless leg syndrome. You're a fucking crackhead. You're smoking caffeine.
Yeah, I think it's actually an anemia symptom as well, I think. There's a
Oh,
whole
wow.
bunch of things they think is that could cause it, or it's related. I think it's
Mhm.
also it's a bunch of stuff, but I can't help doing it. It feels right. It just feels right. I need to
Mm.
move them. I have
Okay.
to like consciously.
So here's
Okay.
something fucked up.
All right.
We can go back to the game.
Go
Well,
on.
actually, I'm gonna say this, and then hopefully you have something to go somewhere else. So I can. I forgot to put this link, our links into my YouTube, my Facebook groups. But so I'm gonna do that after I say this. I had an aunt, and okay, so my aunt
An aunt, not an ant. You didn't have an
in
ant.
in
You had a
in
pet
America,
ant.
in America we say
How could you
aunt. We
tell it?
don't say
How could you
aunt.
tell it?
We don't have an aunt. She doesn't have her pinky out. This is an aunt. Okay, so in Spanish, Thea. I had a Thea,
Uh-huh.
and Thia.
Yep.
She when she was younger. So I'm going to go into the whole story. When she was younger, she had chemical imbalance. It's going to be a sad story. She had a chemical imbalance, and because of that chemical imbalance, she felt very different, and she ended up turning to drugs. She was second from the youngest, and the problem was the two youngest of the children were illegitimate. So my grandmother and my grandfather were, they're married, they're together, and my grandmother has these two last kids. The two last kids are both illegitimate. One was this aunt, Thea, who was my grandfather's good friend. So there was something that happened, some kind of affair, something happens, and
All
my
right.
aunt gets born
Right.
illegitimate, And so, you know, she gets a different kind of love than anybody else because my grandfather knows, you know, this is not his daughter, whatever. And
Mm,
so that plus chemical imbalance, she ended up turning
that's
into a
sad.
life of drugs. Yeah, it is kind of sad. My mom's the other illegitimate child. She just gets outcast. So anyway, because of this chemical imbalance, because of her drug use, and because it's the 70s, early 70s, late 60s, she ends up hitchhiking to California and goes and parties her life away and comes back. She leaves about 16. She comes back about 20 something, and she had done acid and everything else, and she's a different person. Like she goes full blown psychosis, like totally not really completely there. So
Right.
my aunt, when I used to hang out with her, like we would be in the same room and I'm watching TV and my aunt's there, and she would do that leg thing, but like hardcore, like her leg was bouncing left and right, hardcore, 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 and she would roll her tongue in her mouth, like against the top of her roof of her mouth, and she would just do this weird tongue thing. It was so fucked up. Like just watching her do this thing, and that introduced me into like people have weird ticks sometimes,
Yeah.
and this was her tick, and but she was cool as hell.
And she like didn't know she was doing it, or she did know she was doing it. She just couldn't
I think
help
it
it.
just felt right. Like you
Just
said,
felt right.
it just felt right.
The
It just
weird
felt
tongue
right to do
thing.
that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and she was really a cool person. If she drank or whatever, things got a little bit out of hand because her systems for controlling herself is completely different than other people, and she could possibly, like, because she heard voices and saw things, like she can control it as far as, yeah, that's not real or whatever when she's not doing any type of drugs. But if she drank or smoked weed or whatever, she was less able to figure out reality and not reality, and then it would usually end up pretty bad that night or whatever. But yeah, that's the
Oh man.
people tick thing. Yeah,
It's so sad because it's like it's not even. Oh, I was going to say it's not that long ago, but I guess it is a long time ago. But
it well, I thought
this was
the
like
world,
before anyone could get help for things. Really, like it
it
wasn't
was
talked
less likely
about.
you would get help, and
Mm,
um everybody like that I knew had a crazy, they would call them, you know, the crazy person in their family. They would call crazy so and so, and they called crazy Yolanda.
right,
And it
the
was
black
just a
sheep or
different
whatever.
time. Yeah, yeah, it was just a different time. And since we didn't know a lot about mental illness or whatever, you know, they would blame her for a lot of her actions instead of understanding that she just saw the world differently and that she doesn't, like, we couldn't understand her. There's just no way to understand her.
Yeah, well, I mean, she didn't get a whole lot of support either, right? Like
Right,
a lot
right,
of love and support growing up, so
right,
that
right.
doesn't help
Yeah, yeah. It's
things. Like,
everything was set up to be fucked up.
yeah,
And
yeah,
now, much later, we all have a greater understanding. But
right,
unfortunately, she's no longer with us.
yeah. Too
And
late for her.
yeah, it's too late for her. Her daughter, I think, um, you know, my cousin, she has a better understanding of her possible symptoms that comes out. That's a little bit of it's hereditary, so she has some
Yeah.
stuff and she's able to deal with it more, but it's still, she has poor impulse control.
Mm,
But
mm.
at the same time, a lot of us do. You know, a lot of us have poor impulse control. I'm on that fucking list for sure.
Oh man, this is topical because I missed the stream yesterday because I was hungover because I went a bit too nuts on Thursday night.
I
On a
wasn't gonna
Thursday
say nothing.
night, who does that?
I wasn't gonna
I
say
haven't.
anything.
Did you not? Did you not say it
I
yesterday?
said no.
Sarah's
I
not here
said,
because
man,
she's
that's
a
fucked
trash
up to
bag.
say. Sarah's not here today because she's fucked up right
She's
now.
a
No,
loser. She's in bed because
no.
she's
I
sick
said she can't be on for whatever reason, something
for
like that.
whatever mystery reason.
Yeah, yeah.
She
She's
has a
ill.
mystery
Yeah,
illness.
she's ill.
Mystery illness equals hangover.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, my mum is. I read an interesting article recently because my mum is bipolar, and she also, it was a similar situation. Like she didn't get diagnosed for ages and ages and ages, and like
Hmm.
didn't really know that she was different. Like she just, yeah, she didn't really understand herself.
Mm.
Which is interesting, like, because you're living in a world where, like, you don't know any different. You know your experience. You know your
Right.
experience, and
You
like,
only know your experience. Yeah.
yeah, and she has this unfortunate thing. Like, she's a bit of a hermit now. Like, she doesn't. She's always had this thing where she kind of can't help but so things trigger her, right? And then she can't help but blame the other person for that stress or whatever. She doesn't have an ability to really self analyze, I guess, if that makes sense. So anyway, for the longest time, she didn't know. She didn't know that she had it or whatever. And then like, she's had like medication, but then she goes off it and things like that. So it's been a bit of a tragic story for her, and it's sort of ruined our relationship too, and whatever. I've talked about it before.
Hmm.
But I read an article recently which was interesting because it was saying like even if it's not hereditary, and there are like sort of hereditary links with these kinds of like with a lot of mental illnesses, but they were saying also that you can experience like mania and stuff like that, or like symptoms of bipolar just because you've been around it. So it's like a nurture
Hmm.
response.
That's
So
strange.
yeah, it's just the fact that you've been around someone with bipolar that has highs and lows. You can also have, to a lesser extent, lesser highs, right? Not
Hmm.
same peaks and troughs, but like highs and lows. And that like makes sense to me because I can get really hyper and excited about things and feel like I've taken something when I
Hmm.
haven't,
Hmm.
which is pretty cool. I wish it was like that all the time. But yeah, and some people even don't get the like lows that much. They only experience the highs, or some only experience the lows and not the highs. And yeah, anyway, I thought that was interesting.
It is interesting. It's quite fascinating, actually.
Yeah, to
So,
experience that, but it's more of a it's just rubbed off on you kind of thing. Like, yeah. How did we get on this? What happened?
I
We
do
were
not
supposed to be
know.
talking about games. What happened? Oh man, that's funny.
I need to take a quick break. I'll let you just talk about something, maybe.
Sure.
Um, yeah, just
I'm gonna talk about my crazy Thursday night.
are you? Damn, I
Yeah.
want to be here for that.
No, you already heard
No,
it.
oh, stuff I've already heard. As long as it's nothing new. If it's new, you're gonna have to repeat it when I get back.
Okay. Go do
All
your
right,
toilet break or whatever it is you're doing.
I'll be right back. All
All
right,
right.
I'm gone.
Bye. Yeah, so I went to this crazy Japanese magic show on Thursday night, and it was really cool. It was really different. It was like half comedy, half. So I was in like this tent thing that was. Oh, it was really nice. They had like fake cherry blossoms and stuff inside, and there was about five magicians or illusionists, five illusionists, and uh, yeah, and so you can order drinks and stuff like that, like with the QR code based thing. That's a very Aussie thing. You order on your phone and whatever. And so they'll be doing like magic behind the bar. They'll be doing all these magic tricks and stuff. And then they'll just like stop to give you your drink and then go back to it and stuff. It was really cool. It was a cool experience, something really different. I haven't done this before. It's like a temporary thing that's in Sydney right now. And then there was some really interesting tricks. And of course, I'm always trying to look to see uh when they're doing their sleight of hand thing, trying to figure it out where things go and stuff like that. Anyway, there was this particular like illusionist guy that I guess his gimmick was that his magic was not great. Like it was really obvious and it was really like, and so he'd make you kind of laugh, but you were like eye rolling, right? You're like, oh yeah, okay. Like we've seen this stuff before. This is so cheesy. This is, obvious what you're doing. And he got some stuff wrong as well, like but all this was part of the act. This is all part of the act. And then he goes, oh okay, like you fine, you want to see some real magic, like uh I hope you know that it's painful and all this stuff. And we're like, what is he talking about? Anyway, so then he gets these like four tacks, and he like starts shoving them into his eyes, like in the corner of his eyes. He's shoving these tacks in there, and we're like, "What? This is creepy." And then he like sniffs one up his nose, and he sniffs one up the other nostril. All right, and then and then my friend who I was with didn't want to watch this. She was like, "This is gross. I can't watch it." And I'm like, "You have to watch. You have to watch because you have to see what he's doing because we got to figure this out, right? We got to figure out the illusion, the trick." And then he starts like going like this and he's like rattling his head around and he's like sniffing and he's like trying to get these tacks or whatever to sit, whatever, trying to get them out, whatever he's doing. And then he opens his mouth and the 4 tacks are in there. And it was really cool. It was really cool. I was like, oh, these tacks have snot on them and I goo. And
Gross.
yeah, it was cool. But he was cool. I liked him. I liked his whole thing. And then he did this other one, which was really freaky because he had duct tape on his mouth. He had duct tape on his mouth. Mo, you know the story anyway. And then he had someone like write their name on a card, pull it out of a deck, the usual thing. And she wrote this scribble or whatever. And then he's like looking at it. He can't talk to her. And he's like looking at her like, what? That's not your, that's your name. It's just this dumb scribble that she wrote on. Anyway, so he was like teasing her and stuff like that. And then he had this toy panda that had like a hole in it or whatever. And he pulls out a card from the back of the panda and he acts like, oh, this is meant to be your card or whatever. And so everyone sees that it's not the card. It was a different card, didn't have the writing on it. And everyone's like, oh, boo, this guy's crap, like he's rubbish. Doesn't know what he's doing. And then the host comes out and yells at him and she's like, I'm going to fire you if you don't show us some proper magic or whatever. And then he cuts off the bloody duct tape and out of his mouth is the actual card with her name on it.
Fucking badass.
And everyone's like, what?
What?
That's a Moism right there.
What? What?
Lachlan says you'd probably love 1806 next time you're in Melbourne. Whole thing is laid out almost like a cocktail theatre. All the seats are looking down to where they're making cocktails. The menu is in chronological order, discussing the history of cocktails at each period through it. That sounds cool, but I am done with cocktails forever.
No.
No more.
No.
No more. No more alcohol. No. Thank you.
Oh, no.
I cannot believe I slept for like give or take 36 hours.
Yeah, but that's because you binge drink.
I know, it was horrible. Horrible. I just lost the ability to like say no to a drink.
So like,
I'll just have another one. I'm already I'm already drunk. I might as well have another one. Like, no, Sarah, that's not how that works.
Yeah, that's not how that works. Okay, so I kind of see that. Well, I'm going to say a couple of things. First thing is, if you exit out the drinking scene, I want to experience cocktails with you. I don't want to get drunk and fucking sit in bed for 36 hours. But
no one wants to do that.
Yeah, but like you basically said, because I couldn't handle myself binge drinking, you can't experience cocktails with me anymore. And I'm like, oh man, that sucks. Like, unless you really think you're an alcoholic, but I think this goes in that binge drinking problem that it came up like I think it was 15 years ago. They were talking about how it came up with Gen X. And they were like, the problem with Gen X is they have a binge drinking, what do they call
culture?
It? Yeah, binge drinking culture. And they're used to not drinking during the week, thinking, I'm okay, and getting fucked up as shit on Friday and Saturday, and then healing up and going to work on Monday. And how
it's terribly damaging. That's way worse than having 1 drink or 2 drinks a night.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You're putting your body through like shock. And it's similar to the way some people, like some dietitians, whatever, talk about sugar, and they talk about those who, let's say, cold turkey quit sugar completely. They decide no more sugar. And then they have, pieces of fruit or whatever, and their insulin spikes all of a sudden. It's because their body's not used to processing, sugar. So like they should have fruit every couple of days or whatever, like instead of just shocking their body with once a month eating grapes and some shit, and then they spike up.
Maybe that's me. I don't have a lot of fruit. I don't have a lot of sugar.
It's not good to introduce something into your body that it doesn't normally deal with. But it's also equally bad to have something in your body that you're always dealing with. It's not good for you either.
Yeah, that's not good either. None of
Yeah.
it's good. Like, I'm
No.
not saying I'm not going to have a cocktail with you, but I think the problem was that, like, it's the peer pressure thing. So I was with like a bunch of people that were drinking a lot, and they were like kept ordering stuff,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
that's one
the
of them.
drinks were just magically appearing. When they just magically appear, that was the
Right.
biggest magic
But
trick of
then
the night.
the thing that you had mentioned before was something about like maybe did okay, so it's a question. I'll put it as a question.
All right.
Do you think people pleasing was in any of the factors? Like instead of
Hmm.
saying, no, I don't want any, or do you think it was just gratisfaction? I want to get fucked up.
Gratisfaction. I think I don't know. You're probably right. There probably is a link between peer pressure and people pleasy. That's like the same thing, isn't it? Kind of. I think those
Mm,
things are married. I think those things
in a
similar.
way, one
Mm.
is a way to manipulate the person, and one is a vulnerability that a person has. So maybe they can be linked.
Mm. Mm. I think this might be getting really deep. I don't know. I think there's like some people have a bit of a self-destructive quality.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, I think that's me
That's me.
too.
Well, that's
Or
me.
I can have that.
That's me
Yes.
when I don't want to deal with issues. Well, if I don't want to deal with issues, I end up
Mm.
somehow becoming very self-destructive. Some people cut their arms, some people pull their hair out, some people, there's all kinds of
Mm.
manias that are attached to it. For
Mm.
me, it is I need to be in a social environment so that I can, hang out and not deal with my problems. I can deal with okay, so like I don't have one brain that's going to deal with several problems at a time. I deal with one problem at a time. And if I'm
Mm.
dealing with the problem of socially fitting in, socially doing my bit and trying not to aggravate the group, trying to get the group on my side, trying to have fun with the group, trying to eventually become leader of the group and take over the world. Because of course that's always the end. Like, you,
That's the end goal.
yeah, the end goal. I always want to be the leader of the group, but not in a conflicting way, but in a way that like they just choose me because I'm obviously the best choice. So
Yeah, you
in
want to be
that,
elected. You want it to be like a
yeah,
democratically
yeah,
fair.
democratic
Yeah,
election, yeah, and I'm not gonna stage a coup or whatever. Oh, dude, he's definitely the best guy for this job. Look at him, that
yeah,
kind of a thing. So by doing that, you kind of work the back, and you're like, like just making people like you, like just being a
right.
likable person. So if you're that kind
How's
of
that
person,
working out for you? Well, this is why it
uh,
hasn't happened yet.
I've definitely started some little cults. But anyway,
Okay.
um, no. So you go out with your friends and you're hanging out and you're doing all this social stuff, and it's
Mm.
actually it's part of the human brain. We have part of our brain that's evolved to do this. When I go into that mode, I'm not thinking about whatever reason I'm upset or whatever I'm thinking about. Like the whole reason I went out in the first place is to forget about this thing. This puts me in a place where I'm actively not dealing with it.
Mm.
But
Sounds really healthy, by the way.
well, it's not that bad when your friends are playing
Actively
board
not
games.
dealing with things that
It's not that
you.
bad when you're playing board games because like you're playing board games with your friends. But board
Yeah.
games are not happening every night. And in my little
No.
small town, I can't go like I'll choose playing board games over drinking with my friends any fucking day. But that's not always a choice where I live. I might have to go drink.
Have to.
Have to. I have to go interact socially, and if I'm going to interact socially, I got to befriend these motherfuckers. So they got to think that I'm one of them. So that we're all drinking. It has nothing to do with the fact that I like the taste of alcohol. It has nothing to do with that I like the feeling of being drunk. Anyway,
Right. None of
yeah,
that.
none of
You
that.
hate it, actually. You
Yeah, I
hate it. It's
hate
a
it. I
sacrifice.
absolutely what I do for the
Yeah.
group.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's self-destructive. I end up going hanging out with friends and being social, and the social part's cool, but the fact that I want to do it every night or almost every night and I'm not caring where the party goes. Like we start the party, it's supposed to end at 12. You know, we're hanging out, drinking, talking, blah blah blah. It's supposed to end at 12. Okay, so there's an after party. People aren't ready to end it. Then we go do the after party, and then whatever, and fucking you go to work the next day with like 4 hours of sleep. Not that I don't
YOLO.
normally get 4 hours of sleep, but the problem
YOLO.
is if 4 hours of sleep drunk is different than 4 hours of sleep sober.
Oh
There's a
yeah,
big
absolutely,
difference.
100%, 1,000%. You
Right.
do not sleep like this is a proven thing, right? You sleep
Yeah.
like when
Yeah.
you're
Complete
drinking.
crap. Complete
You can
crap.
basically write it off.
Um, and the problem is like whenever I was speaking to my therapist about me dealing with my problems by being social, he's like, yeah, being social is okay. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm drinking a lot. And he's like, well, slow down on your drinking and being social is okay. Yeah, easy said, dude. Easy motherfucking said than done. You know, free drinks come when you're hanging out with your friends. It's just like,
Yeah.
and I'm not a wasteful person.
Yeah,
Heavens
right,
no.
right, right. That's the
Well,
problem. That's the problem I had Thursday night.
yeah.
Magic drinks appearing. Oh man. Yeah. But I like I don't so I was saying I started this with I don't drink very much anymore and I've really gotten to like these like non-alcoholic
Mm,
beers.
mm.
And then I will try to go to places where I know that's an
That's an option.
option. Yeah. Because then you can be social and you can still have that and enjoy it.
That makes
Like I
sense. That
enjoy
makes
it.
sense.
So yeah.
The question that I asked you last, yeah, oh, I didn't ask you. I told you yesterday because I was quite upset, but I didn't ask you. But the
Oh,
question would be
why did you tell
about,
everyone you were upset? Why did you tell everybody?
I don't care if people know that
He
I
was
was
very
upset.
upset with me. Well, because I
I
missed
was
the
upset.
stream, I was
Right.
hungover, and all that
Well,
stuff.
you
Yeah.
missed the stream, and I just felt like I was in a being a priority, and we're trying to work out our relationship or whatever, and that kind of shit upsets me. Maybe most people wouldn't be upset, but it upset me because I'm trying to have some kind of balance in our stuff.
Hmm.
And you going out and partying and stuff was not the big deal. It's the amount of time that you spent out partying and the amount of
Yeah.
like once you got fucked up, there was no our communication broke down completely. No longer did you care about the other person on the phone. You were like
I'm
the here
sorry.
and there in front of you. That's the people. But anyway, so
Yeah.
the point that I'm bringing up is what was the point? I had a point. I done forgot.
Oh no. You were
Oh no.
upset yesterday, and you said to me, you said a question. You didn't ask.
Oh yeah. So the question is, okay, we're not going to go into. I'm trying not to go into details. I'm trying to save people's stuff. But was there a an element of not self destruction of sabotage within it on a subconscious level? Because if you go out with your friends and you have something great going on and they don't have something great going on, are you
Mm.
trying to meet their not greatness, or are they trying to shit on your greatness and just like if the shoes are on the other foot with you and your friends, would things go down the same way? And usually no, that's not the case, especially if you have friends that are um trying to be the leader of the group. I'll just put it that way. Like if I'm the
Like
leader
you.
of a yeah, like if I'm being the leader of the group, I'm not going to be taken down by anybody, but I'll take everybody down with me.
I don't even know what that means, Mo.
Okay.
What does that
So,
mean?
when I'm the leader of the group,
Yeah.
I'm like when someone tries to leave, I'm
Yeah.
like, "Hey, you sure you don't want another one? Hey, one more, man. Come
Oh
on. It's not
no,
a big
you're
deal."
terrible. I never do that. I'm like, all right, see you later.
Yeah, but how often have
You're
you
a
been the
bad
leader of the
person.
group?
You're a bad person.
That's been established a long time ago.
I'm
Way
not trying to
before
be leader. I'm just trying to be the cool one. I'm trying to be like cool, laid back in the shadows one. Yeah.
mm, like I'm trying to be
The one that sees everything, just
mm,
observing, That's me.
I try to be that in a lot of things, but not in a social group. In a social
Okay.
group, I'm viral. I'm vying for leadership, but not in a alpha male kind of way.
Okay.
Very subversive. Very
Low
depends on the
key.
group, but yeah, very low key. Very. quiet until it's time to pounce, and then you pounce on it.
I'm not understanding what the benefits of being the leader of a drunken group of misfits is actually. Like, I don't understand why
Have
that's
you
something
never
you want to
had to
do.
go beat up somebody? You need a group to take them to go beat up.
No,
That's the whole point.
violence is
Like
not the
you make
answer.
no like during the daytime you make a fucking enemy, right? And then at night you get drunk and you get your riled up friends and like take them over there to go beat that person up. It's all jokes. I'm joking, completely joking. I'm even joking about being the leader of the group. That to me that sounds funny to be the leader of a group. It's good comedy. It's good
I
comedy.
know. I know.
Trying to
I can't even
entertain.
remember what the original question was. Okay, so you asked me if there was an element of sabotage, like as
Right.
in
Do you think
sabotaging
they're
of this relationship, of our
yeah,
relationship.
or a
No,
sabotaging
I was
of
just
your happiness or
wasted. I was just wasted.
you don't think there's some subconscious level, maybe not you, maybe your friends that are not as happy as you are doing something subconsciously to bring down the happiness to their level.
Mm,
I mean, there's no answer because you never know what the subconscious is up to.
you don't. That's the whole point.
Yeah, because it's subconscious.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Mm. I've seen some crazy shit though.
I think I was just, yeah, I just didn't really know. I was in YOLO mode.
Oh, I think you said it really well yesterday. You were being
Well,
selfish. I think that was
yeah, all
like
right.
when
I
you
was being
said that.
selfish.
When you said that, I was like, oh, okay. This is a person who understands their plight.
Yeah, because I think I didn't set obviously didn't set out to do that. I didn't set out to
Well, I assume
drink
not
that
because
much, right?
before you even left, I was like, and I you had the floor. I was like, what time are we need to get together before we stream tomorrow? You gave me
Yeah.
a time, and I'm like, okay. So I assume like, okay, so she's probably going to try to get home about 12 or something like that to make sure she can make that time. But even that's
Yeah.
a stretch. But it says to me that she's trying to do everything, satisfy her friends, satisfy herself, satisfy me, like satisfy everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go out very much, right? So that doesn't happen very much for me. Going out at night, doing, especially not for a while. Like I'm on holiday and I've been really sick. I've been sick for like weeks. And so I
Yes.
went out. I was having a really good time and I'm selfish and I'm sorry. And can we talk about something?
Well, then talk about something.
Can you
Bring something else
please
up.
talk about something else? All right. Okay. So you were talking about, you were messaging someone on Twitter and you were like, they said something about, you know what? It's really good to like meet people in the industry by working at their like demo table or whatever, like work for them at a con, you'll get paid and you'll meet all these people and da 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 da. And I was like, well, what do we do in Australia? Because
You don't have cons,
we can't do that. And it
right?
kind of sucks. How are we meant to meet people in the industry? Because let me tell you, there's not that many board game people in Australia.
Yeah.
Save your pennies and go to a convention in the US,
Yeah.
I
There you go.
suppose.
Well, okay. So I'll talk about the that, and then I'll talk about maybe your prediction.
Yeah. Predicament.
Um, predicament. Sorry. In America, because we don't. I wouldn't think we had a bunch of huge cons, but actually we do have a lot of cons. Every
Yeah.
state has a convention,
Right.
and if you can just go to another state, and usually tickets to fly to another state ain't that really cost that much. But when you go to a convention, um, publishers are always looking for help, and in fact, they usually don't bring their own staff to do the selling of the games. Like they might bring staff to show games, maybe, but usually it's only like one of two of them that they actually pay for the fucking flight to get to wherever they need to go to sell their shit, and then they get a bunch of local help. And that's actually one of the things that I did. So in my case, okay, so here's what happened. Here's how I went to my first big convention. I was running the board game group, and so on social media, we were gaining a lot of traction. By about that time, we had about 20, 30,000 people in our group, and we were a very close knit family community that talked about board games. And one of our admins, Mandy Bot, the the girl from Seattle. She was going to go to BGG Con, and she asked she told us the rest of the admins, hey, y'all should all try to show up at BGG, and it's in Texas, so yeah, we should. Then I checked, and there's no fucking tickets, and I tell her,
Boo.
sorry, man, we can't make it. We can't make it because there's no tickets available. And at that time, because BGG didn't have it at the same time, PAX, I think it's East happens, or is it PAX West? One East or West happens in America around the same time. Everybody went to BGG because that's the only place you were going to see the Essen things that came out in October. So games get released in October. By the time they make it to the U.S., they'd make it in November. If they get a U.S. printing, it's usually going to be in February or maybe sometime between February and April. It's going to get printed in the U.S. But if you want them straight out of Essen, you're going to play them there. There's one more con in between the two, which was known at the time, and it's in Seattle. It was called Sasquatch. So people would go to Essen, which is the middle of October. Is it October or is it middle of September? I think it's middle of
October.
October. Yeah, middle
Yep.
of October. They go to Essen.
The dates move around a bit, but yeah,
A little bit, but it's like the second week, I think, of October.
usually.
Yeah, they go and they pick up a bunch of games. They bring them, they fly them to the U.S., and you could play them at Sasquatch, or if you wait a little bit later, you can play them at BGG Con, and they have a lot of them. For the smaller publishers, they only have one or two copies, and usually stuff's really expensive. But we at least get to play them and try them out, and they'll be in the BGG library anyway. So we want to go to BGG. She says we should go. We can't because there's no tickets. And she's like, ask around to the publishers and see if they need work, because usually you can trade like 6 hours of work for a ticket, because all these publishers get these extra tickets whenever they buy their publisher badge, whatever. So I knew at the time I was good friends with Stephen Bonacore, Stronghold Games. I reached out to him and I said, hey, man, we're trying to go to BGG. Do you have any tickets? And he says, yeah, work our booth. You put in like 6 hours and we can get you in. And so that's what I did. I told Lyndon about it, best friend at the time. Hey, let's do this. So we do it. We go to BGG. We work the convention booth. We get to go into the exhibitor hall early, and everyone who's at BGG gives a shit about at the exhibitor hall, because they got the new games for the year that were shown at Essen. Plus, they have the games that were shown earlier the year at Origins if they hadn't sold out. Or what's the other big one? You got Origins, and what's the other big convention? Gen Con.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
the big games from Gen Con and whatever, if there's a reprinting or whatever, they usually try to do it by October, so it could be at BGG. Now, PAX is kind of in the mix. Anyway, so we go, and we have to learn a game, so we get rule books, and of course we have to learn the game, and we have to teach the game, and then try to sell the game at there. And then we're there before everybody else. We show up. I think the convention thing opens at 11, so we're there at 10. From 10 to 2 or 3 in the afternoon, we have to show the games, whatever, and then after that, the rest of that is our time, and we do that for like 2 or 3 days during the convention, and the rest of the convention thing is ours. But that's also where I got to meet a lot of people. Well, besides meeting Steve, who became an acquaintance. What is it, the developer that he's also in our Discord. What the fuck's his name? Let me look. I can find it.
Paul?
Yeah, Paul.
Yeah.
Paul and his brother, we met him there because they were also selling Panamax, which I think Paul did the development on. And then they were also selling something else that was on the heavier side. The car making game. Vital's car making game.
Oh, right. Kanban.
Yeah, the original Kanban. The original Kanban was being shown, and Panamax, and a reprinting of another game and something else. Anyway, so we got to meet developers there. We got to meet other publishers by shaking hands and whatnot. And then we're also wearing Stronghold shirts, and we're wearing Stronghold gear because they buy you a shirt or whatever, and you
Right.
you have to give your shirt size to them beforehand. It's not like they have a bunch of Stronghold shirts, but you give them your shirt size and you
Yeah.
wear the shit and banners. So you're part of Stronghold, and you get to meet people. And then luckily for us, we're also part of the board game group. So we're shaking hands, meeting people, doing our thing. Besides getting tickets, we also got one board game each. So I ended up getting Panamax, and Lyndon got Kanban, or vice versa, so that we'd have one of each. And then I think Lyndon bought the other one, which he didn't have, and I think I bought the other one. And we got them at discount. We got them at employee discount prices, and then we got lunch, and we got to shake hands with a bunch of people. And that was an entry into networking for that thing. But we also had the board game group, and we were also able to meet a bunch of podcasters that were in our group, and also meet other people that were adjacent booths that were selling shit. And so we just shook a bunch of hands. We just met a bunch of people. And also, because we were working for Steve, I was like, hey man, I've got a game, do you want to see it? And he's like, yeah. And we showed him not Conflict of Plants, but I had
T-shirt Empire.
Enterprise. Yeah, T-shirt
Yeah.
Enterprise, or Empire, whatever it was called. I had this other guy that I met because this guy knows Steve, like they're really good friends. He showed Conflict of Plants to him, but they weren't interested at the time.
Okay.
But anyway, so the point is, when you go to work at a convention and you work for one of these groups and you don't get paid any money, you get paid more in the possible people you can meet, and
Yeah.
shaking hands with everybody and getting to know how the industry kind of works and how everybody knows everybody. It's such a small industry. You get to
Right.
see, oh, everybody knows everybody. They're not that big of competitors. I mean,
Yeah.
yes and no. We were sitting right next to, what's the name of that Polish dude?
Oh yeah, Ignacy
Yeah,
Trubashek.
yeah. He was right there next to us. And
I have
Lyndon at the
no idea if
time,
I'm saying that right. By the way, I said it with all
it's
that
something like that.
confidence.
Something
I've
like
got
that.
no idea.
This is the first year that what's the game, that mystical game that looks like Dixit, but it's not Dixit. It's like
The
spiritual
mystical
Dixit.
game.
It's like It's like fortune telling Dixit.
Mysterium.
Yeah, Mysterium, but it was in its original Polish uh, version, which I
Yeah.
forgot the name of it. And he was selling it there, and it was selling out like crazy. And we were able, because we got it first in line to teach our games. We're there at 10, and they opened at 11. We're able to like run over there and buy one of these games. I
And
forgot
what a
what it was called.
disappointment that was.
No, at the time it was innovative. We were
Oh,
like,
okay.
wow,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
really
It's
cool.
definitely innovative. I just don't see it as your kind of thing.
I got rid of my copy within a week, and it went
Yeah.
for a shit ton compared to what I thought. Of course,
Nice.
but like the
So many,
novelty.
many benefits to
Yeah,
doing
many,
this
many-
then.
Yeah. A first shot at the games, because I was in convention booth first, meeting people that I'd only read about and saw in BGG, getting to meet the Bonacore dude, getting closer with the media people, because the media people come along and they have the media badges, and usually you're the first person they're going to talk to, because they want to talk to Steve, right? But Steve's busy selling games, he's making money. And
Yeah.
so you end up talking to them first. So like, I met a lot of Dice Tower people. I met just a lot of people that were doing podcasts, and they would come to me first, and I would say, yeah, I can introduce you to Steve, or I'll tell Steve in a moment, but my job is to teach you this game. So let me show you the game that I'm trying to sell. And I would show them
Yeah.
the game, and then we would go forward. And
Yeah.
I don't know, it was a good experience. Never do it again. We only did it once.
Really? You'd never do
Yeah.
it again? Why not?
Never do it again. I'd rather buy my own ticket and not have to
Not have the
to shake-
obligation.
Yeah, the obligation. Well, okay. I'm a bit of an introvert, and it sucks out of a lot of my social battery to have to put on the fakeness that it takes to sell a car.
Yeah, I don't like sales. I really
if
don't
there
like
wasn't
selling.
anything to
I
sell,
don't like
I
pushing
would
products.
love it. If there wasn't anything to sell, I would enjoy it.
Yeah.
I would just I like talking to people, and I like having crazy conversations, but I've got to have the freedom that the conversation can end badly. I've got to be able, if I can't.
Otherwise, you're
shock-
worried it's going to end badly.
No, yeah, because I'm trying to sell you something and I'm on somebody else's dime. I
Right.
don't want to do a bad job, so I care about
Yeah.
the way I'm coming off. So I'm paying too much attention to how I'm perceived. And for me, my filters are very low, and if I have to guess what your filters should be and turn my filters up, it's a lot more work than I'm used to. Because I'm used to like blunt, brutal, and I don't care how you take what I say.
Right.
Anyway, so back to the original thing. So you live in Australia, and
I'm like, all right,
and
leave it there. Yeah.
you live in
I'm in
Australia,
Australia.
and
Hmm.
you want to enter the board game space, and you don't have as many conventions that you can.
Yeah. What's my alternative? What's my alternative? I
Well,
mean, I
one
guess
of
there
the
are some. Like, I'm going to PlayCon. Maybe PlayCon will be it. Like, that's going to be pretty big.
yeah, I would
That's
say
probably
that
the
if you
biggest. That's the biggest board game dedicated con, I think, in
right, if
Australia.
you're in Australia and you want to get in the board game industry, don't like if you have a board game design,
Hmm.
don't do it with your board game design. Go first and meet everybody. Understand who you're trying to sell the game to. It's important to get an understanding of what they want as a product, and can your design at least meet their product to a
No.
percentage that's more than 50%.
No. There's no. So that's the other thing as well, right? Is that the publishers that are in Australia are interested in family weight light games. There's no publisher right now in Australia that's doing heavy games, that wants to publish heavy games.
Right.
That's
Um
not a thing that exists right now.
right. So one of the things I had to think about whenever we decided to do heavier games, well, it just naturally evolved to that. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to do heavy games. We just knew that the games that we were going to do aren't were going to be very popular. Is to befriend your potential publisher, that you
Hmm.
need to contact them and get on a first name basis with them. They don't have to know you all that great, but you need to try to befriend
Make
them.
them aware of you. Make them
Yeah.
aware that
Yeah, but
you
not in a
exist.
negative way. You need to
Right.
be. I look at
Don't
it,
stalk
and
them.
I look at it as a. There used to be a show back in the '80s called Cheers. I look at it like Cheers. You need to be able to walk into a bar and them know who you are. It needs to be to that level. They don't need to be your friend. They don't have to agree with you, but they definitely need to know that you are a person who exists and you're trying to make games. Eventually, you bring in, I'm trying to make games at some point. And one of the ways you can do that is by play testing for a publisher. You can do that by asking if there's any way you can be part of their media team, unpaid, of course. Just being a cheerleader for that publisher. And none of that should be hard. If you're making games that you like and that publisher publishes games that are in
That
that
you like.
vein,
Yeah.
then you are doing yourself a satisfaction and there's no losses. Let's say they don't pick up your game. You still are involved with the publisher that you like, and you get to move the hobby forward by being a cheerleader for that
Hmm.
company.
Hmm.
I don't think there's any bad things about it. Now, if you go in there with only the idea that I want to sell my game, well then maybe a publisher isn't the right place for you. Maybe you should go straight to Kickstarter. Maybe you got that enough enthusiasm to make that work. It's
It's
when you're
like that. You
dealing,
can smell the desperation. You need to.
yeah,
You
yeah,
need to
yeah,
be
yeah.
chill, and you need to be in it for other reasons. So Lachlan said, Oz Board Game Dev Con. There will be dozens of us, dozens of
Nice,
us being designers, I assume. There are a small number of us in Melbourne who've done some work on some heavy games. Jeff's solar expansion is great and deserves a wider release. QB18XX in space. There's a Victorian 18XX coming from somebody I can't remember. Wayne, yeah. So there's designers here making heavy stuff, but there's no publishers based in Australia that's publishing heavy stuff that I know of. Lachlan, you can
corrector,
fill me in. Yeah,
corrector,
correct me.
Lachlan.
Correct me. I'm
Mansplain it to
happy
her,
to be.
please, please. Put her in her
No,
place.
not that. Not that. Ignore him.
um,
Yeah.
I was in the same boat. I didn't, well, not in exactly the same boat, but I didn't think there was a publisher that would publish the game that we were going to make. in America. So, the games that I liked were coming from publishers that were outside of the US.
Yeah.
So I was
Did you
just
meet
lucky.
Uli at a con?
Uh,
Is that where you met him?
Originally, okay, so here's the Uli story. Um, I wrote to him. Okay, so I've told you this first on a Nude Cubes we
Yeah.
did a long time ago. It all goes
Yeah.
back to being into metal. Back in the metal days, we used to exchange tapes via snail mail. We used
Mhm.
to make homemade magazines. We used to uh, put little flyers in those envelopes, and we used to just send them back and forth everywhere.
Mhm.
Well, when I realized what a fanzine was and how easy it was to do, I wanted to make one. We were buying tapes from underground bands that hadn't been signed yet, and we were getting all this stuff. And a lot of that stuff right now would be really cherished and wanted stuff that would make a lot of money. Like we had demos from a shit ton of bands that got signed and became very famous. But this was in the early stages of death and black metal. In fact, we were there at the birth of black metal. And when it came through uh, the tape trading scene, it was really interesting. Nobody knew what to really think of it, and it was a really cool idea. Anyway, so we're doing all this tape trading and whatever, and I realized at a very young age that anybody, as long as you can find their address, you can mail anybody. Like you can talk to them. So we ended up doing interviews with these bands that were coming up. Some of them were signed, some were unsigned, and blah blah blah. So we're making our zine and whatever. We ended up not finishing the zine. Well, we ended up by the time we finished the zine, the whole underground scene had moved towards mainstream, and there was no more. The underground scene wasn't tape trading anymore. They were already most of those bands had gotten signed, and they're really we were there in the middle and the end of tape trading and fanzines. So anyway, so fast forward, I know that you can reach anybody. I know that like there's no problem just talking to somebody. Just fucking hit them up, and now we have the internet. We can hit up anybody. And I had made the board game group, and I've been hitting up everybody. Hey, join our group. Join our group. We want to talk about board
So
games.
just so everyone knows, if you have an address, Mo might hit you up.
Yeah,
He's
yeah. It
coming
would
for
no
you.
seriously. I hit up everybody every fucking day for 3 or 4 hours a day. I would look up on Facebook. This is back in 2010. I was looking up everybody on Facebook, and if you said anything about board games, you got a message from me. And it said, I made a group about board games. Here's the link.
Yeah.
Come and talk about board games. And
Mhm.
eventually, some people started showing up, and every day I would talk about board games. I had a question of the day. I would engage with everybody. We would all talk about what's coming up, and we became this community. And like, eventually, I didn't have to be the guy that made the question of the day. Other people would make them, and we just kept talking and talking and talking, and just making this thing. By 2011, we were, for us, 500 people was a fuck ton because everybody was talking. And so then we became bigger and bigger and bigger. And this was all because I was used to a community of metal people. And so we did that on Facebook, and it was this big thing. And then um, at some point, I had already been at this before that. I'd been designing games, and I had quit for a little bit of designing games. I decided to start designing games again, and I reached out to Uli not because of game design, because I wanted some of his games free. I've got the board game group. I've got a lot of people.
You
If
want
I
free shit.
play the game in the group and I take pictures of it, everyone is going to be interested because
Yeah.
I'm a real big member of this community. I started it.
Yeah.
So I'd write to publishers and tell them, hey, send me your game, send me your game, send me your game. And Uli was one of
Yeah.
the people, and he sent me some games.
Yeah.
And I like Spielworks before
And
that.
now you're
So
like, please, nobody send me any free games. I don't
yeah,
want any
yeah,
free
big
games.
time. No, I don't want none of your shit. Don't send me a goddamn thing. I'll buy it my fucking self. Because you're gonna send me a bunch of crap, and I'm gonna have to play it, and I'm not happy because we'd
I
end up
swear to
getting a
God,
bunch of
when you
shitty
are a
guys.
gamer, you see these like, people in the board game media and you're like, oh, they get all these free games. It's so awesome. And then when you start to get free games and you have
It
to talk about
snowballs
it, you're
it.
like,
No,
oh God, this is horrible. This is
no, the
horrible.
obligation just goes up and up and
Yeah,
up
yeah,
and up.
yeah.
It's so shitty
It's so
because
horrible. And your
if
your hobby that you love and cherish
oh man,
becomes
it
this
becomes
thing of like, oh,
right.
I've got these games I have to play. and I don't like any of them. I just want
Right.
to play the games I want to play.
You were part of that with the fucking barbecue.
I
You know
know.
what?
I know I was. I know I
Well,
was.
imagine this. This is early board game industry stuff. So they were starting to split the hobby up. Like a publisher, instead of just publishing one style of game, they started splitting the hobby up, and they started splitting the hobby up to where, okay, so this game we know we're going to sell X amount, and this game we're not going to sell as much. So the game they knew they were going to sell a lot of, they knew it was lighter, so they were sending us that bullshit game. They were trying to promote that game so they could get the numbers they thought they were going to get because they had
Yeah.
paid the people who did the art and the designers so much more
They
than they did
needed
for
their
the other game.
money back.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they would send us all this fucking bullshit, and we had to go in front of people and say we played it. And you know, we're
Yeah.
trying so much fancy language to act like we did. Trying to say we trying not to say we hate it in fancy
Yeah.
language, just to say,
Trying to
oh,
find something good about it. What can I say that's truthful, that's sort of
yeah,
positive sounding?
playing
Because I
that
don't want to
fucking
sound
bullshit
so
game.
negative.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we fucking did, and it
I
sucked.
hate that so much. I
Yeah,
hate that
it
so much.
finally got to the point where people kept trying to send me games. Like, no, I'm not going to take it. Not going to take it. Not going to take it. Well, anyway, in the middle of all that,
Yeah.
Uli was one of those people that I would write to, and he ended up sending me games. One year he's like, "I'll give you these games, but I'm not going to mail them to you," and he
Right.
thought that was going to deter me, right? I was like, dude, I'm part of the board game group. I'm just gonna tell somebody from Germany, hey, go over there and get these games for me, and give them
Yeah.
to so and so because they're flying back, and it's just gonna be
Right.
part of their luggage, and so
Yeah.
I still found a way to get games in America
Yeah.
that way. But he was putting up those barriers. But Uli knew me because I was constantly begging him for games and
Mhm.
telling him who I was and whatnot. I don't even know if he remembers that, but that was
Right.
part of my thing. And then
Right.
I went back into board game design. And I'm like, at the time, I was really liking the Spielworks games. The game I had was heavy enough to be on Spielworks, but the T-shirt Empire wasn't the style of game that would be on Spielworks. It wasn't. I don't think it could have done it anyway. Um, then I went into trying to make. I specifically wanted to make a game that could make it on Spielworks. I knew I had the mechanic side, but I'm always poor on theme because I don't feel like my themes are all that really strong compared
What
to
do
the
you
rest of the
mean?
board. Compared to the rest of the board game
Before
industry.
you're talking about before the cost, I'm assuming.
Well, this is the cost. Yeah, the cost. I was like, well, I want to make a game about asbestos, and at that time, there wasn't anything in that lane really.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure there's a
Yeah.
couple of things, but it was not really well known enough to somebody bringing in conversation. I was like, I want to make a game about asbestos. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I'm specifically going to sell it to Uli and Spielworks. And I remember talking to my friends when, like Lyndon and Brian, who also helped develop it and design it. You know, what if Uli doesn't buy it? Well, there was only Uli. Like no one
Yeah.
else is
Yeah.
going to buy it. So we're like, well, we're going to have to go to Kickstarter. And I was like, man, I really don't fucking want to do that. It's either
Yeah.
Spielworks or nothing. And it ended up being Spielworks. And luckily, the way that worked out is I had this relationship with Uli. Uli came to HeavyCon, and I was friends with Edward, who made HeavyCon. Since
Yeah.
the first BGG, I met him. The one that we went in to work for Steven. He was
Yep.
there. We introduced ourselves. We were listening to his podcast very recently. We'd only been listening to it for a month because he actually talked about games that we were interested in.
Hmm.
And then he realized that we were part of the board game group, and he was really interested in like being friends with us because it helped promote his thing. So it was a mutual parasitic relationship.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Symbiotic.
yeah.
If you could say parasitic, that's fine.
Here's an interesting fact, which I've said before, is we had been. I was talking to Edward, and at that time I forgot his name. Not Edward, the other dude on the podcast. He's a friend, and I forgot his freaking name. It's so bad.
Oh no.
I know. Acquaintance. Anyway, I'm talking to Edward about this and said, man, somehow, I don't know if it was him or me that came up with the idea, you guys need to do a convention. And he's like, yeah, but blah, 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 talking about all the negatives of making a convention. And I don't know if it was me or him that came up with the idea. And I did my typical Moe thing coming from the left field. And I go, dude, you don't have to make a big convention. Invite 5 friends. It's a convention. Invite 5 friends, and those 5 friends will make it grow bigger as long as you treat those 5 friends right. Do the right thing. Invite us to your house. We'll have a thing. and we'll post about it. And as long as we post about it and talk about it and make it a thing, people will want to come. Just
Mm-hmm.
just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the reason why it happened. So, because of that talk. I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't there, but I
You
happened to
pushed
be the
for it.
right guy in the right time.
Yeah.
Maybe I told him what he wanted to hear. Or maybe
Mm-hmm.
I gave him the idea that doing it small is okay.
Yeah.
So we did it small. There was like 12 of us there, 15 of us there. We show up, everything is great. And then um, Edward and his partner were like, dude, you're the one who made this happen. So from here on out, you have a free ticket to come to our con.
Nice.
It's always, you're always welcome, blah, blah, blah. But then there was a falling out and everything. So
Right.
I might be able to hit up Edward and get a free ticket. I don't know.
Hey,
I'm
does
sure
that
I could
still
bully him into it.
stand?
I could bully him into it.
You said this. You said I get
So
this.
anyway, freaking
Anyway.
Uli goes to HeavyCon 3 or 4, and I'm there, and I know Uli's there, and I tell Uli, I've got prototypes to show you. We need to make time, so we schedule it. And in our group, me and Lyndon and Brian is the shake hands guy, and Lyndon is the rules guy, and I'm the idea guy. I want to be in the background. I want to be Wizard of Oz guy. I don't want people to talk to me. But
Okay.
I'm the one who set it up because he actually knew my name. So I set it
Yeah.
up and I said, we're going to meet up here. And I talked to both Lyndon and Brian. Brian's supposed to be there doing the talking. Lyndon's supposed to be there doing the teaching. And I was hoping maybe I could be absent or I can be in the background and just correct things if anything comes up wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Lyndon stays up all night the day before drinking with our friend Steven. So they're up till like 6
Oops.
o'clock in the morning. So Lyndon can't do it because he's fucked.
Oh no.
Brian's game that he is scheduled.
Why is everyone doing that to you? Why does
Yeah, I
everyone
know.
do that to you, babe?
Yeah, I know. Then fucking Brian is all fucked off playing Mega Civ because he's the teacher and it didn't finish, so they're continuing on the game, so he can't make it. So me,
Right.
not prepared,
Oh no.
I sit with Uli
Yeah.
and I have to show him everything, and I thought that these guys were gonna do it, and it sucks. So I sit down with Uli and I go, okay, man, I made a game about asbestos. Here's how it's played. I specifically want Spielworks to do it. I think it's the right company. This is the whole reason why I made the game, is to be on you. I don't know if you remember T-Shirt Empire, but whenever we talked about it in T-Shirt Empire, it made me understand more what you're looking for, and I think this is the game. And I showed it to him, and he says, yes, I'm interested. I'll take it. So he grabs it up and he takes it. And then I said, well,
Nice.
I also have, and then I showed him 1903 because that was my new design. The cost was a year old by that time. So this was HeavyCon 4. HeavyCon 3, I'd showed the cost because my thing was every year I'm going to show a new game. I showed the game in 2016. There was a lot of changes between 2017 and 2018. I showed it in 17, but in 2018 I was showing 1903, and so I gave him 1903 as well. I showed him 1903. He was interested. He also took that. Then I showed him, well, I've got this 52 card heavy card game that's really interesting.
Texas Rails.
I showed him Texas Rails, and he says, I'm really interested in that. So he took all three, and he play tested them at Lyricon, and he told me the problems with all three games in an email.
Right.
And then he came back with another email and told me some more problems with the cost.
Yep.
But I couldn't understand his language. Like, he was telling me, I want to sign the game. I'm interested in the cost, but here are some things that we need to address.
Yeah.
What I took it as, the cost is an interesting game. Here are the problems you need to address.
Right.
So I wrote him another email and I go, dude, maybe it's your language or maybe it's our language difference, but are you trying to say you want to sign the cost? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I want to sign the cost. Here are the problems we're going to have to address. Do you have an issue with that? And I go, no. Boom. That's how it goes underway. And that was 2018.
Nice.
And then Texas Rails is not enough cards, too heavy. And 1903 is not enough components. Strong enough of a game, not enough components. Yep. Which is an interesting problem. I think we've talked about it on old Nude Cubes. We definitely need to bring that up again.
Yeah. Right. Well, that comes along with why it's a good idea to know your publisher. and plan to make a game for the publisher. Because
Right.
if like that's what you did with the cost, and then that made sense, but of course you didn't think of that with
1903 was,
1903.
it wasn't
And
made for Lulu. Yeah. It was just made
right,
as
it
a,
wasn't, and it didn't have, it's not the same game. It's a smaller game with less
right.
stuff.
And our idea was we're gonna we had never showed Uli the cost, and we wanted to go with Uli for the cost.
Yeah.
2017.
Yeah.
Made it. Hadn't spoken to Uli about it, but I'm still going to continue designing. I got to design for the next HeavyCon, 1903, right? 1903, I decided, well, we're going to make a game in the middle size, so that it could be a stair step to the money that we make on 1903. If we kickstart it, we can make the cost ourselves if Uli doesn't take it. Someday I'll show it to him. Okay. Then we're like, well, we need a first game that we can use the money from that first game to make 1903 to make the cost. So it needed to be like stair stepped.
Yeah.
So Texas Rails was that small game. It was
Right.
the card game to whatever we made on that, plus adding some money to try to get 1903 made, which that plus some money to get the cost made.
Right. Right.
And he just went to the end. Oh, we'll just get the cost. The rest of that, no.
Yeah.
I still got the other ones,
Yeah.
which you've played.
Yep. Played all your games. I haven't played T-Shirt Empire.
No, I need to put that back together.
Hmm.
Man, I did a lot of talking there.
Yeah, but it's interesting too that, like, you know, like maybe some people have the view of you that you made the cost first and you got your first game published and it was a success, and how cool is that, and blah blah blah. But actually, no, you worked a shit ton for years and you had multiple designs that didn't get published. And
Yeah. In
Yeah.
my lifetime before the cost, there's at least 20 games.
Yeah.
At the very least.
Yeah.
And 10 of those were of the caliber that I felt that could be marketed. And
Yeah.
of those that could be marketed, probably 5 might be good enough to further develop.
Yeah,
And that would be
for sure.
the
But then you've got to
cost.
know
Right.
there's got to be a market for it. There's got to be a
Right.
publisher.
Right.
There's that element of like that a lot of designers don't talk about, which is being in the right place at the right time.
Right. Right place,
It's
right
not
time.
enough to make a good game. You can have a good game made. So your first job as a designer is like, yeah, you got to be able to make a game that's good, but
Right.
that might not be enough to actually get it published, unfortunately. So it
Right.
just might not be the right fit. Might not
Right.
be the right time.
Well, I think a lot of designers are impressed with their first design, and no, that's just the criteria to get into designing is make games that are good enough to get published. But that doesn't
Yeah.
mean all of them are going to get published. That probably means that
Yeah.
if you're lucky, a third, half will get published or whatever. For me, it's
Yeah.
not even that. I'm not that lucky at all. One out of 20 or 40 games is going to get published.
Yeah.
And then, besides getting like published, you're in board game jail waiting for them to get published.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've got 2 signed games, and of course one is signed with you and Uli, and we're just gonna be waiting forever until it finally gets published.
Right. I don't even like really want to talk about it yet because I'm like, no, don't bring it up because
You're gonna jinx it.
you're gonna jinx it. And it feels weird because you sign and you get really excited and you just want to tell everyone, but
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, it takes so long, and then people are like, so what's going on with your game? What's going on with your game? And you're like,
Yeah, they
nothing
have
yet.
no idea how long it takes.
Ask me in 2 years' time.
Yeah, I remember telling you about like board game jail and how serious
Yeah.
a thing it was, and I don't think
Yeah,
you
yeah.
understood. Board game
I
jail
didn't
is board
really.
game jail.
Yeah, I didn't really fully understand it. But it's cool because you've got, you need 2 years to make another game anyway, so just start making
Yeah.
another game. It's
Yeah,
fine.
just start working on another game, and
Yeah.
your in between time is to help develop the original game as well whenever the problems come up. But the fucked up thing about designing a game is the direction I've had to come in is you spend however long it takes to make the cost. The cost took 2 months, and then it took another 4 months of development just within designing the game, in a prototype sense, and then it gets signed, and then there's no work on it for 2 years, nothing at all. It's just sitting there, and then we're gonna publish it in a couple of months. Fucking go to work, and you're sitting there working your
And then you're like,
fucking
oh no,
ass off.
oh no.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
You
exactly
put your
what's
whole
going on.
life aside because you're like, shit, we got to get this
Right,
done.
we got to get this done. We got to get this done. We got to get this done, and
Yeah.
then and then it gets made, and then there is
Which is not your favorite part either because you like to
I
make the
fucking
new
hate it.
stuff and
I
get,
hate the stuff
yeah,
we have to do with the fucking working on the cost stuff right now. It
right.
sucks.
I love
I
it.
I want to design new shit, you know?
Yeah, I do as well. I was having a lot of ideas in the shower this morning about my Savior and Mother's game.
Oh, nice, nice,
Like we
nice.
need to do this. We need to do this. I'm going to show
Yeah.
you what I've got. Yeah. So that'll be fun.
I think Lachlan.
But we have to do the cost stuff first.
Yeah, we got to get this
Yeah.
fucking hammered out.
And we're doing okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We got the component list, so we have time now.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to get together and look at how much time you have left on your holidays, and then manage our time and try to figure out if we're going to get 1 or 2 games done to a showing state for BGG, or if we're just going to develop the cost and just not worry about a deadline and then just work on the other 2 games. We'll just have to figure that out. I work better under a deadline, but the deadline has to be realistic, because if it's not realistic and you shoot yourself in the foot, you don't want to deal with that pressure for no reason.
Yeah.
It needs to be positive pressure,
The
not negative
disappointment.
pressure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, okay. So Lachlan asks, how do you feel about self-published designs when they're on the bigger side? Like it's one thing to have little print and plays like train games and war games for them. Mike Lambo's books are really well regarded, but they are largely like self-published books, occasional gems, but largely there's a reason they're not published. Like I know some are niche. If I ever figure out the fundamentals of my IVF game, that ain't going to be a commercial success ever. But there is a tendency for self-published to be just less good, with some exceptions. Yeah, like you want to get that. Moe talks about this all the time as well, is you want to get that cult following. It's all right. I'll listen to you.
Somebody,
like if you're going to do the self-published route, you need to build a community and have a cult following kind of thing. Like you have your community, you have your niche. That's all that matters. You don't need to be a big commercial success.
Yeah, you have to define what success is for you.
Yeah.
And then if you decide success for you is making a lot of copies of games, and then you decide to make a heavy game, well, you just shot yourself in the foot. You just made sure you couldn't accomplish your first goal.
Right. Yeah.
If your idea
it's
of
a niche
success,
within a niche, and then if you've got a weird, like a kind of interesting theme, then usually that's good. I think that's usually a draw card to have an interesting thing.
Trust your developers. I think that's also one of the things that's a problem with a lot of Kickstarters, not Kickstarters that are with big publishers, but self Kickstarters tend to skip the development stage, and the development stage is as important as the rulebook stage. The rulebook is important because that's your game. Without the rulebook, there is no game, no matter what the fuck components you have, no matter what videos you have, how to play the game. We are in a rule book centric world when it comes to board games. So your rule book is the game. You got to get that through your head. Second part is your developers make or break your game. So you need to find developers you can trust, developers you can believe in. And what I mean by developers, not big D developers, friends that
big
like
D
games. You need little D developers.
What?
You need people that you trust, that whatever their decision is going to be, like me and Sarah brought this up together, like just talking about our own games and working on them together. If me and Sarah disagree about something, we both trust each other's instinct that if we don't get our way, we know the game's still going to be good. So you need to have guys and girls that are playing your games, that are going to make suggestions, that even though you don't agree with the suggestion, and let's say you take the suggestion, you know that the suggestion is going to be a net positive.
Yeah.
It's going to make the game better. Maybe not as good as you thought it could be because of your idea, but at least you know it's not some shit idea that's going to totally fuck the game up. that's what you don't want. So you need to trust you, play with your friends, and only take advice from the friends that you consider peers within
Yeah.
that design community
Ones that
or
you trust,
understand
like you
design.
said, ones you trust so much that you trust their vision so much that you can go, all right, you think that's a better idea? Fine.
Well,
I'll
I
bend.
think that there's something actually we need to talk on the nude cubes, and hopefully I'll remember to put it in our list. Is
I'll do it right now.
developers don't get enough credit for what they do. They are, you can look at them as co-authors. When you come to the table and you present an idea to one of your friends and they help you develop the game can take on a whole new narrative. The game can look completely different from your original idea. But if you trust them and you trust yourself and you don't allow your ego to get in the way, that game can become something maybe special. And so this happens with authors a lot. Whenever you're reading a book or listening to an audiobook, that's the way that I consume them. Sometimes what you're actually listening to is the editor's version of the story. So you're taking in an author that's been co-authored. So like your version is not even the original version. I forgot. I was listening to somebody talk about this the other day, and they were talking about some famous authors that we have never heard their true voice. When you go to the original manuscripts, to the first drafts, you'd be like, that does not sound like them at all. And it's because their authors carve in their own
The
voice
editor
into it. Yeah, the
or
editor, I
whatever.
mean, carves in their own version of, they try to make it concise, or maybe they make things bigger or whatever. So when you're looking at developers, a lot of developers do that. There's like, I remember even Paul talking about the math on not Kanban, the math on Panamax, and how he fixed the math on how the stream works. And
Right.
so that's the game. Like if you look
Yeah.
at it now, if you
Yeah.
look at it's not, you go from one side to the other, and then there's this, what you would call it. There's this, uh, what area control thing. It's not about the area control. It's about the money, and his specific input made the game.
Mm.
He doesn't get enough fucking credit for that,
Mm.
and that's the game. So like you have to trust your developers and also get your ego out. You want to make the best game you possibly can. And you want to have developers that if you make a mistake, or no, if you don't believe in their vision and you believe in your vision, but you end up going with their vision, the vision ain't going to be shitty. It might not be your vision. You might think your vision is going to be better, but it's not a shitty vision.
Mm-hmm.
So back to that trust thing, I guess. I just said trust like 5,000 times. But the point is, some of the games that you're playing have more of the developer soul in it too than the designer's soul.
You really know. Yeah.
Yeah. Me and Lyndon used to have this conversation, but it was a little bit different. But the conversation was, what is a board game? Was it the fact that I came up with this idea, so like it's mine? Or is it that all these people got involved and made it to what it is?
Mm.
And so in Lyndon's view at the time, from what I remember, he would say that it was he made the thing come into life, and so he should get all the credit. And I'm like, I don't know, man.
Wow.
I was like, I don't know, man. Like, you really, like, that's why developers don't get enough credit. They really don't.
Yeah.
So back to the original question, if you're going to publish your own stuff, get developers in. And not big D developers, little D developers, get them in. That's going to vet the game. That is going to be gatekeepers to what other people get to see.
Mm-hmm.
You like, if you saw some of my crazy ideas for the cost before it got put into a game, a lot of those I had to develop out, but then a lot of those ideas, because of the other people helping me develop the game, got developed out. And
Mm-hmm.
it became what it is. And I'm not saying it's successful by a monetary sense, but it's successful as a game that's on BGG that some people regard as great.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Okay.
I like it. I like it quite a bit.
I do too.
It's fun working on the expansion stuff.
It
How did
is.
you come up with the ideas for the expansion stuff?
The list was huge. Well,
Really?
okay, so like
So you
no,
just
like
went. So did you just do a brainstorm like, oh, I could do this or I could do that, or I like,
okay, so yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so there was the stuff that got left on the cutting room floor, the stuff that got developed out, or the stuff that never got developed in. That originally ideas that I had for the cost that never got built.
Right.
So I had those on the chopping block, thinking, someday maybe I'll add this content, or if we ever do expansion, this is going to be the stuff. Or I make a new game, this stuff I have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I forgot who it was. There was a publisher that asked about doing the cost and do I have any idea for expansion stuff.
Hmm.
And the contract for the cost was about up. And I'm like, this is another way I can sell the cost by coming over with expansion stuff and we can get it reprinted.
Yeah.
So I originally thought, oh, okay, so what I'll do is I'll just add in this other stuff, maybe some other stuff on the top, talk to Lennon about it. It was during the COVID time, so there wasn't a whole lot of movement outside of the house. Boom, none of it worked. We try to put it in. We try to put all these fucked up, grandiose ideas I've had for the cost. That we couldn't get it to work because we had balanced the cost to a point where when you add something really wonky, it just fucked up the whole
Mm.
game. And we were
Right.
trying to rebalance it, and we ended up adding more fucked up shit to make it work. So I finally had to say, look, okay, so none of those ideas are any good. Let's
Yeah.
brainstorm. We sat there for days just brainstorming, writing down ideas for possible things. And then all during the day, I'm thinking about ideas. And then we
Yeah.
start putting them in one at a time. And most of them didn't work. And then eventually we came to the consensus that, look, there's a lot of the math that we can't fuck with because it's already
Mm.
solid.
Yeah.
So what can we do within the constraints of the math that we already have and
Yeah.
balance it on
It's a
top of
different
the
kind of
math?
challenge.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a completely different kind of challenge. You think that, oh, I got
yeah.
this badass idea, I can just throw it in. It doesn't
Yeah.
work that way, or it didn't
Nope.
work for the cost. We weren't
Yeah.
creative enough to make that work. So
Right.
we ended up making small tweaks that adjust strategies left or right of what we had originally
Mm-hmm.
thought, and then we try to balance those against the other strategies that are in the game, and
Mm-hmm.
then we eventually came up with, okay, so how can
I
you?
would I would say that these like modules and stuff, they let you go further with your chosen strategy
Mhm,
potentially,
mhm.
but you've got more to think about to try and do it. And there's also the count. I think it lets you go further with the counters to those strategies too,
I agree
right?
with that. Yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. So one of the things that whenever I think about designing a game, one of the parts that I think about is we want to design the game originally from the very onset. It needs to be modular, but modular can be many different things. You just need to not be able to play the same game twice. You can't have the same strategy every single time you play. One way to do
Mm.
that, which we did in the cost, is by having the variable of where players are going to want to go. And then the other variable is how these countries are different and how they push you in one way or another. That makes a
Mm.
variable modular beginning. Then, whenever we're looking at adding the expansion, obviously you have to put that into account. How do we make it more? How do you make the beginning more modulated? So, the leaders was an interesting idea because each country will act differently at different times, and you could use those
Yeah.
as strategies or counter strategies, but you also need to try to make that happen. And then by playing other games, you knew that, like, well, we need to have attention. So we need attention to make it happen. And if it does happen, how that it can't wreck the complete game either. It only gives you a small boost, and they need to be balanced against
Yeah.
your money the incoming money and the outgoing product needed to be balanced. So there was
Right.
that, you had to fuck with that tension. And
Yeah.
then that wasn't too bad. And then coming up with new maps was a lot easier than the first go around with maps, because the first go around with maps I think are a lot weaker than the second go around of maps. The first go around
Right.
the maps, we had played the cost a lot, but not to the extent that we'd played it by now. So now we know the cost a shit ton, and so the maps are a lot better. The new maps I think are a shit ton better.
Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah,
They're
so
cool.
they're
They're
more balanced than the
interesting.
original set.
Mhm.
But that also means the original set definitely go one way or the other. And if you played a lot of the cost, if you want to do this strategy, don't do it on this map. These
Yeah.
maps are a little bit more flexible, but at the same time, more balanced, I think. Anyway, but then whenever you were like, the maps need to be,
Do something interesting.
yeah, the maps need to be interesting themselves, so there's not just an
Yeah.
alternative to the original map. I think when we first came up with the maps,
You
that would have
didn't
been
agree with me on
yeah,
that
yeah,
at first.
right, because it was anathema. Because we were like, no, we want it to just be a more balanced map. But then the cool thing was, okay, so we tried it and we added things. There was already, we were at a point where some of the groundwork for how far you could push the math, it was already there. So it was easy to say, okay, plus $1, minus $1 here, plus one resource. It was easier. We weren't going from scratch. There's already a groundwork of, okay, we can push it in this direction. This thing already goes that way a little bit, so we can push it a little bit further. So we didn't have to start from scratch. I'm basically saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then it would have been much more difficult to make the maps different. I think you originally wanted to make the political tracks different, or we talked about the political tracks being different,
Yeah.
and then I told you how much work that would take,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we decided that just doing
And
this a little bit push.
also, now that we've played, like now that I've played the expansions a bunch of times too, I can see that those are the right things that should go well with the expansion content. Like it already changes the game enough that those political tracks, going up those political tracks one way or the other, can make things really interesting,
Right.
really
And what
juicy.
but the thing the cool thing that we can say is that, like, because it's going to take several months before these rules get completely finished, our main thing is to get the components that we're going to need for these rules. So we get enough of the game done to where we get the right component count, which we have. We can get those component counts to the artist and to the manufacturers. So now we work within that framework. So if there's
Yeah.
any dramatic changes during this development step, we can make the dramatic changes. What we can't do is add new components or take away components. So those are our constraints.
Yeah.
So these new maps, we could put a completely new political track in there if we wanted to.
Yeah.
And we might have enough time to figure that out. But right now, we got it working, and I think it's really solid. We got the component thing done, but if something crazy happens during development, it's possible. It is possible.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
But like it feels like it's so close to being
Yeah, it
ready
feels like it's
right now.
almost
So
finished.
it's
Yeah,
like,
it
do you
feels
really
so
want
close.
to?
No, here's the
Yeah.
crazy thing. The other day, I thought of a completely new map. Completely new. It'd been like
Oh,
the added colored map, and I was like, oh, we could make it a 5-player game. We could add this other map, and it could be. I was like,
not anymore. You can't.
you know how much fucking time it would take?
Yeah.
Extra time to play a 5th player.
Oh yeah, it'd be so long. Well, that's the other thing we were worried about with the expansions as well, is that it might, if you played with everything, it would be crazy. Our
You'd be bogged
recommendation is
down.
don't play with everything, all the new stuff
100%.
at once.
100%.
You give yourself a brain aneurysm, I think.
There's a lot of things to keep track of. Yeah, but like, I come up from an old school version of playing the beige Euro. So in my old school version there's an ideal player count, and that's the maximum amount of players that you need to play a game with. So back in the day, if the player count said 5, that meant the ideal thing to do is to play full player count. It doesn't
Right.
work that way anymore, but it's just
No.
because I'm old school, and the cost really works well at 5. At 4.
At 4. I was about to say.
It is fucking, it just is beautiful. At 2, if you haven't played at 4, I think you're not going to even see the game. You'll think, this is all right, but
Yeah. The
at
first time
3,
Kerry played it
yeah,
was just with just the two of us. I wish she'd
yeah,
played it with at least another person.
right. But you were used to games. You knew games well enough to see something interesting in there, I think. Or
It wasn't my
try-
first play. No, my first
Oh.
play was with 4. My
Oh,
first play
wow.
was with 4.
Okay.
Remember, and I had this sort of semi-alliance thing going.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Okay.
remember the first time I played it, just that like first turn,
Mm-hmm.
that first turn in the game,
Uh-huh.
and I was just like, I don't I don't have a clue. Like I just don't have a clue what I should do right now,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that was really cool. It was like, all right, here's the rules. Let's go through it. This is, this is it. Let's play. And then I was like, hey, Ian. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. I have absolutely no. And I think that's like the sign of a really good game.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I love that. I was
Absolutely.
like, this is so opaque. I just don't understand this game enough to even, and I've got to commit to something. I've got to do something.
Right. And because it's
Everyone's
a
looking
game
at
that
me. It's my turn to do something,
and
Sarah.
because the game is an interactive game, like meaning your
Yeah,
actions are completely dependent on what other people do, and it's
right.
countered shit, and like it is extremely opaque. And that's one of the things I love about games is like its opacity,
Yeah,
automatically goes up. And
yeah,
if I do poorly the first time I play it, it's automatically good. It's like
yeah,
those things that I was trying to check off originally. And like I
yeah,
said before, is I'm a big fan of dominant species. And every time I ever left the dominant species board, I go back and I think about, oh, I could have done this one thing and I could have won had I done that thing. Or I
yeah,
think about like how things could have gone different, or think about how I could rape train the rules to have gone in my favor versus me reacting to some bullshit and then come up with some strategies or whatever. And I
yeah,
wanted to make a game that had that. And that was important to feel that thing. And the first time that somebody came away from it and did that, I was like, oh shit, we did it. We did it.
yeah, right. Yeah. I do that
But
all
I
the
think that
time. I'm like, I shouldn't have done this. I should have sent you that dice. Like that when Red scored 350 points the other day,
oh
which
yeah, yeah, yeah.
is has to be like the biggest score anyone will ever get.
You have to play with like all the expansions to do it.
I was like, damn it, I should have sent you the dice. Yeah.
Since Ian's here, did you finish the vampire movie?
No.
Oh,
No, I didn't. Stop it. You're already spoiling it enough.
I'm not spoiling it. I just
You
said
did
since
spoil
Ian's
it.
here,
No, you spoil. No, not right now. You haven't spoiled it right now, but
you're spoiled. That's
yeah. I don't know. You said something the other day, and I'm like, I haven't finished it. Stop. Stop.
shut your goddamn mouth. That's funny.
Yeah, I think Ian has posted about it before. Anyway, I'm watching Let the Right One In. I did watch that Martin movie that you talked about
Oh,
the
you
other
didn't say
day
you didn't tell
because
me you've
it's
seen that.
free on YouTube.
You didn't tell me you've seen that.
I
Should
was
have said
gonna
something.
let it be a surprise when we do our
Oh,
vampire thing, but since you brought it up, I thought
we're doing a vampire thing.
we should do a vampire thing.
Mm. I wish you would have told me you've seen Martin. That's a good movie.
When was the last time you saw it?
Um, I
Because
rewatched it
it
like 5 years
is
ago.
old school. Oh, really? Only 5 years ago? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I watch it every once in a while.
Okay.
You know, it's a Romero, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Like that's just the shit.
Yeah. I love Martin. Let the Right One In is so good as well. Yeah, I'm really enjoying
Yeah.
it. I'm really enjoying it. Yeah.
I don't remember. Has Ian ever said whether he liked uh, Dracula, the Brian Stoker's Dracula, the one that Ford Coppola did? I don't remember. I think I've mentioned it before. I don't know if he ever said he dug it because that's to me. Whenever I like you watch the original Dracula, like that is one of the few that I really like the most. I like the old school one, but that one for me does it because I'm a Francis Ford Coppola fan.
Uh huh. He said the remake is bad. Which was the Coppola one? The one with Gary Oldman? Or is that the
Yeah, Gary
remake?
Oldman, but he's talking about the remake of The Right One In, I assume. The
There is no
American.
there is no remake of that one.
Yeah, there
Oh,
is.
there's a
It's an
show.
American
There's
one.
a TV show.
No, there's an
It's a
American
TV
version
show.
of it.
Oh, really? I didn't know they
Yeah,
did that.
yeah,
Yeah, Bram Stoker's Dracula's cool. That's the
yeah,
one with Gary Oldman, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
That's
didn't mind the first. They've done like I think it's a three-parter thing. There's a Dracula TV show, but I didn't like Dracula in it. But I thought that the way that he was torturing that guy and had him locked up was pretty cool. That was really cool. And he's like real old and he drains his life and all that.
You're talking about the one
It's
that's
a
on
recent
Netflix.
show. Yeah, yeah. But then it gets real bad. It gets real bad. But the
Yeah,
first episode of it was actually pretty cool.
I remember you telling me about it, and I watched it, and I was like,
Yeah, and Van Helsing's the nun in. Oh, this is probably spoilers, but whatever. Love the in-camera effects. It's one of the best horror scores ever. I haven't seen that in so long.
oh
Need to
man, it's
rewatch it.
I probably see that one about once every 2 years.
Mm,
I was just like, oh, I need to see it again.
yeah,
I love the vision of the whole thing. It's just fucking cool.
yeah. The Castlevania show was really good. I really enjoyed that. I think I only saw like season 1 though. I don't know if you saw more of it, babe.
I've only seen the first 2 episodes,
Oh, okay.
and I never went forward with it. Well, I mean, I do recognize that it's good, but I just never went forward with it.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought that was really good. Anyway, but we shouldn't talk about this. We should do it as a thing,
Oh yeah, we'll
a
do a
special.
vampire. Yeah, because last time we did werewolves, so we'll do vampires.
Yeah, and I hadn't done my research then either. I had nothing. I had like nothing to say. I didn't know any of the movies. I'm like, Anyway, the score uses this musical technique that sounds like the pitch is constantly getting higher and higher. It's amazing. Oh, that sounds stressful. That's the whole point,
Did
though, right? It's like adds to the
did
tension.
did Francis Ford Coppola's dad do it? Because he's the one who did the original Godfather score.
That was
I doubt he did it.
Francis. Wait, what?
Francis Ford
Oh,
Coppola did, the
the
Godfather, and his
score for.
dad did the score. So I wondered if he used his
Oh, I
dad to
didn't know
do
that. That's
Dracula,
cool.
but I doubt it. Um, my favorite score of all time, though, and it's very cheesy, Conan the Barbarian. That score from the original is fucking
Sorry, I
amazing.
don't even know why I'm laughing because I haven't seen it. I haven't
Well,
seen
you
it.
don't have to see it; you just have to hear it. It's an amazing score. It
Well, I
really
may as
is.
well
Like,
see it and hear it.
no, you don't have to see it; just hear it.
Okay, good. I won't.
Good. I think it's just like
Um,
it's a lot like it's like inspired. You can definitely see it's inspired by Wagner. Like it's just amazing, completely amazing.
yeah.
And
I liked the xylophone in Martin. Thought that was pretty cool.
I don't remember it.
There's
The last
some good
xylophone I
music in that.
remember is what's his name? There's a musician that does like avant garde death metal, and he does
Right.
like a xylophone 20-minute fucking solo. It's fucking insane. It's really fucking cool. In
Nice.
death metal, it's like what? What the fuck? I
I
remember one.
really did like the premise for Martin though. I thought that was really cool. Like when he
Yeah, it
goes
was a really
back to
cool idea.
his granddad's house or like
Yeah,
who I don't know, whoever it
yeah.
is. No, he'd be a descendant of him, right? I don't know, whatever. But okay, the Dracula score is by that's another Polish name. I assume I can't say it. Wojciech, Kilar. I don't know how to say that. I can't.
Okay. Well, people will be able to see it in the stream anyway if anyone
Yeah,
ever watches the stream.
yeah. So yeah, I liked the initial premise of the whole all right, I'll save your soul and then I'm going to destroy you thing. That was really cool. I was like, "Oh, this sounds great." But then the movie wasn't really that. So,
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. I kind of want a
We'll
different movie. I want that movie as well.
okay, so let's save that all for our vampire stuff because I'd
Okay.
love to talk about Martin, but
Psycho is one of my favorite scores and I love Suspiria too.
do you
Every
remember?
time when you
What were you
guys
gonna say?
you talk about movies that I haven't seen and I feel so movie illiterate.
So
Because
in
there was a
Psycho,
huge amount of time in my life where I didn't watch movies, really, basically,
mm,
like at
in
least a decade.
in Psycho, my favorite part, the music, is whenever I think she's in a car and she's being driven, and there's this real frantic thing, and that score was actually used. That part of the score was actually used in another rap song, and they used that section. It's really cool.
Okay,
I,
I got
I
to
think you
talk
have
about the Tarantino book. I
okay.
read Cinema Speculation. I kind of sort of talked to you about this already,
Mhm.
and like it's really good. I really enjoyed it, but the best parts about it were like the first section and the last section where he actually talked about they were more autobiographical, whereas in the middle of the book he basically did a chapter of like he chose a movie, and these are all that he's talking about like his absolute favorite movies of all time. And so each chapter is like a different movie, and he talks about, obviously what he loved about it. And then he talks about like all this, because he would go up to the directors and he'd be like, why did you do this? Like if he didn't like something, he'd go up to them and he'd be like, why did you do this though? Like I loved your movie and I loved this and that and whatever, but this was a weird choice and da, da, da. So he has all these like, background info, I guess, like in the book, which makes it really interesting. And then he talks about, the actors that he really liked and like what they were in and what happened, why did they get cast and who was meant to be cast in it.
Mhm.
And it's really cool. It's really interesting. It's really good. But then one of the other things about it at the start, he talks about like being an 8-year-old kid and like going to the movies with his parents and like not wanting to say anything because his parents were taking him to this like adult movie, like all these adult movies. So he was like, he had to be cool. So he just was quiet and he knew that he couldn't be a kid. He just had to be like just cool and not say anything and not get shocked. And like, if it was violent, don't say anything. If it was sex, like don't say anything. Just whatever, just hide in the background, whatever. But but like his love for movies, was just so like even as an 8-year-old kid, he would watch he was obsessed with watching like the audience reactions. Like there would be some scene that like shocked him or whatever, and then he would turn around and he would like see what the audience was doing, how they were reacting to it, whatever. It was basically like this guy he had to be a director, all right? He had to be a director. He couldn't have been
Yeah.
anything else because as an 8-year-old kid, like that's your fascination with the people's reactions. Like there's no way I would have been like that at 8 years old. I wouldn't have cared about the people. I would have been
Right.
like glued to the screen. Anyway.
I think you're talking movie stuff.
Lachlan said, I saw that. I know you weren't listening to a word I said at all.
I was listening to you completely.
I thought you were just like, I saw the MSO do a Herman Hitchcock concert with bits of the films, really opened up how great Herman was to me. By the way, I have to read everything to Mo because this is why he wants it. I know I know that everyone can read. Okay. I'm just doing this for Mo. This is part of our deal.
Okay? Yeah, but it's also part of like if we put this on YouTube, it doesn't have the chat. So if we're talking about the chat that we're reading, they're like, what the fuck are they talking about? These people are crazy. So it's
just explaining anyway.
And I'm explaining the
I'm just explaining what I'm doing. That's all, because just in case people are like, why is she reading all the chat? Nothing beats Morricone to me, though. Yeah, the whole score is strings. Morricone is amazing. I love his score for What Have You Done to Solange. I don't know any of these. Once Upon a Time in the West for me. Sublime. The vocals give me chills. Only film that I know that effectively uses boredom as what seems like an intentional literary device.
I remember that film, Once Upon a Time in the West. It was really good. I really liked it. But I can't really. It's been a while. It's been a little bit.
The other thing, though, is I can't understand. So I read Cinema Speculation, and then I watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and then I was like, if you hadn't read Cinema Speculation, you're not going to get as much out of this film, because there were just so many things that he talked about in the book, his love for Peter Dalton or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just like obvious in the movie. The whole thing's like making him a hero. And
do you prefer that you watch a movie and you take it for what it is to you, like engaging with the art and whatever your version of what the artist is, your interpretation of what the artist does as the thing, or you one of those people that likes to hear the intention of the artist and then take that away from it? Because like Lyndon was the type of person who wanted to hear the artist's intention, and that was more important to him than his own. Like for him, if he made it up, it was not the same as the artist's intention. And for me, I come from the other world. Like,
that's Lyndon though, right? Like he just everything has to be 100% literal and
right.
Yeah.
Right. Like for me,
there's a right answer. For Lyndon, there is a right and the wrong answer.
Right,
for
right. And there's,
everything. So he needed
like
to know.
Tarantino's done this a lot of times, and other, directors do this where they leave something ambiguous and they don't even have an answer for it. They just leave it ambiguous and
Yeah.
let you come up with your own version of whatever,
Yeah.
and they don't ever tell you so that you can have your own version. So where are you at that? So like you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or what was it called again?
Yeah, it's that. It's what you
Yeah.
just said.
So if you watch that like me, just watching the film, like I saw it completely different than you did.
Mm, mm, mm. I think it can give you. I think both. It can give you some greater appreciation for some things. I guess it depends. It depends on who it is and what it is.
Mm.
Some things are better when you don't fully understand them. I
And
think. I think in this case it was better.
it was better for
I,
you.
yeah, it was better for me. I think because just the way he talked about old Hollywood and like got all nostalgic and stuff like that.
Mm.
It gave me those nostalgic feelings when I watched the movie more so
Mm.
than I would have. It's like that seeing something through someone else's eyes, you know? You can appreciate it through.
Right.
Like I never saw these old movie theaters, but hearing him talk about these old movie theaters and how much he loved them and
Give you
everything
some
like that
appreciation for it and all that.
gave me more appreciation when I saw the movie. But generally, I think generally no. I tend to like to read and watch things and not know anything about it, generally speaking,
So like
going in.
related to board games, that's why I like I prefer to keep things vague. So like
Mm-hmm.
the original political track and the cost didn't have a name for each section, and that's why the resources for the country don't have a name. Like they really don't have a name. And in
Yeah.
fact, it was other people playing the game. I always hear their interesting name for those resources, and I end up borrowing those names.
Yeah.
And it's this thing that I think that the narrative people can marry with what they're playing makes it way more interesting because their ideas are going to be better than mine because they came up with them. Like mine are going to be this static thing that's never going to change, and theirs is always this crazy shit that they come up with.
Right. It's like everyone that plays your game interprets something a little differently or whatever can bring a potential different idea
Right, and
to it.
they can give the game some kind of weird life of its own.
Yeah.
Like I remember somebody teaching Madeira, and they explained the way the second action. Okay, so in Madeira you have the little thing, and you take the top action, and if you pay for the top action and you do it legitimately, you might have access to the second action in a later phase. And so the way they explained it is the way that I always explain it now is if you pay for it, I'll do you a solid later. Like they do you a favor later, you know?
Yeah.
And so it it's not taught in the game that way. It's not written that way, but
Mm,
like it makes the game take on
it
this
makes
whole
sense.
other vision of what
Right.
these dudes are doing. And I
Yeah.
always wanted to marry that thing. And another game that's kind of like that is if you look at Deluvia Project, in the original game, all the cubes had a name. They had what
Hmm.
kind of resource it was. And they took all that out. And I
Right.
was like, that is
On
genius.
purpose.
Just call it the red resource and you can just make up whatever the fuck it is because it's all made up anyway. So
Right.
let the players come up with their own shit.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I
Yeah.
think that you can come up with a half-ass rule that's a little bit gamey that works and
Hmm.
just say it's part of the game and let the other people put in what their vision is. And that happens though in the development space, it's not that great. It's like me and you are doing this thing and I tell you here like the way the contracts work, and then you're like, but it doesn't, contracts really don't work that way. Then you come up with the way that you think contracts should work. And then I'm like, no, you're not thinking of it
No,
abstractly enough.
that is absolutely not what I said. And that is not what
I
happened.
didn't
All
say
right. So
verbatim.
thanks for listening to me. What I said was
Defend
that
it.
people will perceive, because gamers' perception is a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you say contracts, they will perceive a certain thing. That is
Mm-hmm.
what I said.
Mm-hmm.
And usually when you perceive contracts in a game, there's a bunch of stuff that you have to give to get something else.
Mm-hmm.
That's what contracts usually look like in a game. It's like, you want to fulfill this in Barrage, this amount of power, you'll fulfill this contract. Or,
Right.
in Yokohama, these goods, this good, that good, fulfill the contract, get some reward. I'm just saying that when you say contract, I said, does it have to be called contracts? Because maybe that will be the perception. That's all I said. Anyway, and then I dropped it. I didn't bring
Yeah,
it up.
because I'm
You
like,
brought it
no,
up.
they're going to be called contracts.
And then, so Ian said, watching Samurai Kung Fu and Galileo Giallo. I can't say. Oh man, I can't do the names today. Movies really highlights how much Tarantino made a career of taking stuff from other movies. Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
And I think that was the other thing that was interesting in this book, right? Is because he obviously fixates on specific things that he would have wanted to see, that he thought was a better idea, right? And so I think you're right, Ian. I think he then goes, I'm going to make the movie. It's almost like he goes, I'm going to make this movie again, but I'm going to do it the right way, the way I wanted it. I'm going to fix this mistake that some other dude made.
But then
Kind of,
also,
like almost. And I think I have this theory. I don't know. I have this theory that he's basically doing one of every genre that he likes, right? He's done a samurai movie. He's done a
I think Ian
Western.
might be also talking about some of the direct rip-off scenes for Reservoir Dogs, like directly ripped off
Yeah.
from
There's a lot of that, right? It's not just Tarantino that
yeah.
does though.
Yeah, it's pretty
But
blatant though. And
yeah,
the
I think
unfortunate
so.
thing
I
in
think he's
America,
just a movie nerd, isn't he? Like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think this is
I don't
something
want
he's
to discredit because
hiding.
he did
This
have to
isn't something
film
he's
it.
hiding at all, right? Like
Right, right. But the crazy thing is whenever I'm only speaking for America, when Reservoir Dogs was thought to be completely original, and it was just the fact that most people hadn't ventured out of American cinema to see some of the stuff he was directly
yeah.
mimicking or
Yeah.
reshooting.
Reshooting. He's a great director and storyteller, not so much for original ideas though.
I think his originality doesn't necessarily spring from the original idea, but his originality springs from how he puts it together. That's a different type of originality.
Yeah. Ian said I like to think about a film for a few days. I usually like a film a bit better after I've thought about it for a few days. I'm kind of like that with board games, but I love to hear about intention behind films I'm already familiar with.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that. Like I like to have
Yeah,
my
yeah.
own
Because
version
then it
and then
doesn't
hear the
change
intention.
that doesn't affect how you've perceived the movie. It only fills in potential stuff, or it gives you a different perspective later, which is nice. But it
Right.
doesn't ruin your expectation or the way you take in the movie.
This reminds me of when we went to go see Eyes Wide Shut at the theater, and we all left the film going, "What?" We're like it was so deep emotionally and so deep having to deal with relationships and the power dynamics and everything that like we really felt like we sat down and watched the demise of a relationship, and it really was too much.
Yeah.
We left the film and we're all like, well, whenever I have that feeling about music and about board games, about anything, I like it. I already leave and go, I felt something, I like it. And then I think about it, like Ian said, for a couple of days, and then come up, why did I like it so much? But usually because I couldn't place it at the time. I couldn't place what it was, or it just
Yeah.
impacted me.
Yeah. Yeah. Ian agrees with me. Contracts is a very loaded term.
Right. And that's why I want to deconstruct it.
Boom.
That's exactly why I want to deconstruct it. I want you to look at contracts and think, oh, this doesn't work like a contract, but you have to think about it in a very abstract way and make up the narrative yourself. Or I can just fucking write the narrative and say, this is why it's a contract, and then go through everything that makes it a contract. This is what's going on behind the scenes. Like, okay, so we're playing the costs, I'm teaching it, and they're like, well, you know, how much are you paying the workers? Like, to work. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that is a problem
doesn't
for
matter.
middle management.
Yeah.
You are the fucking, you own the company. You don't give a fuck. You
Yeah.
got it. It's in the worker manual.
My son's messaging me.
Oh, okay.
Quick.
So I will
He's
continue.
unwell. Quick, look busy. Ian said, I love leaving a film and going, what? Yeah, me too.
That's
I like movies that you have to like just analyze a bunch of stuff, and you're just like I'm going to ask you something and you don't even know the answer, but I just need to hear what you thought, like I'm like, but did you
Yep.
think this bit meant this? What did you think this bit meant, Mo? Tell me. Help me, Mo. What is another movie that I saw recently that was like, what? It was the one with, it's got Philip Seymour Hoffman in it. Cinedoche, New York or something, I think it's called.
I don't think I've
Oh
seen that.
man, that was cool. That was really cool. And I
Mm,
didn't know the point of it. I didn't know the point of it. What is the
mm,
point of life? I think that was the point. The
mm,
point was nothing has any meaning. Oh, I don't know. It was so good. It was really good.
mm. Um, I remember recently I sent Sarah a death metal band. They play like a version of slam death metal that they use a lot of fake drums and a lot of I guess things that are common within the genre, but they do it in a way that makes you feel kind of gross when you're listening to it because they're using an 808 for the kick drum and they're using some kind of crazy snare sound and it's fucking annoying, but it's like it's gross like the music and it like I was like, "Oh, dude, I really like this cuz this is fucked up sounding." It made me go, "What?" And Sarah didn't really
That's
feel
like
it.
that sexy red or whatever. She makes me go,
Yeah,
what?
yeah, she's a very what?
Monotone. Actually, you know what? I listened to one of our Nude Cubes episodes and I realized I was doing that. That real
You do what?
monotone. We're doing the Nude Cubes. It's gonna be a podcast
Yeah,
or
you did it
something.
exactly like it was
Yeah.
inspired by Sexy Red. What?
Excuse me. I came before that.
Oh, okay.
Before I knew about her anyway. I have 2 random film recommendations. I saw the TV Glow. Oh, yeah, I saw your tweet on that, and it was like, you watched it twice in the same day, yeah. What? That's crazy. And Poison for the Fairies, Mexican
Haven't heard of
horror.
that. Haven't heard of that.
I need to watch Twin Peaks. I haven't watched Twin Peaks. What can I watch it on?
Mm.
I need to
It's
figure out
on
what I can watch it on.
it's on HBO Max, I think.
I'm looking my streaming guide. Is it?
I think so.
And there
I
was a
believe
show,
so.
wasn't there? Is there a show as well?
Yeah, there's the movie and then the show and
And
it's
then the
good.
show.
Like basically the show is watch the first season, then watch the movie and then watch the second season. It'll make a lot more sense. But you
Oh,
can watch
really?
them in whatever fucking order you want to. It's
Okay.
because well, I'm not going to spoil it. That one can get
Okay.
easily spoiled.
All right. Don't then.
But I'm not as big on Lynch as I used to be. Okay, so I first saw Eraserhead and I'm like, this dude's a fucking genius. And then
Mm.
watching Twin Peaks, I thought, well, this dude's pretty badass. And then the more and
Mm-hmm.
more I got used to his films, the less I got into Lynch. I was like, I still think Eraserhead's like my favorite Lynch film, but I really didn't like Lost Highway. Blue Velvet was good, from what I remember. But
Mm-hmm.
I think Mulholland Drive I hear is really good. I hadn't seen it
Oh,
in a
you haven't
long,
seen
long
it?
time.
Oh,
No, I've
wow.
seen it, but it
Yeah.
was a long time ago. And I don't think I really
That
understood it
movie
at the
made me
time.
feel things. It made me feel so many things. Oh, man. It really did.
Mm.
It's just so unsettling. It's the most unsettling feeling I've ever had.
Wow. I think maybe the first time I saw Blue Velvet, it was that. And definitely whenever I watched Eraserhead, it was very unsettling at the time. But that was
Mm.
like college days, you know? It's a long
Yeah.
fucking time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 seasons, then the movie.
Oh, okay. That's what it is. I know that there's a
Is that
sequence
what I
that you
gotta
should watch
do?
in.
Is that the order? Someone just tell me the order.
Well, no, I think it's you can watch half of the film and then watch both seasons and then watch the end of the film because the end of the
What?
film is the
I'm not gonna
conclusion
do that.
of the first 2 seasons or something like that. It's some shit like that.
Oh, okay.
It's a very compact version of everything
Right. Gotcha.
from what I
It's way
remember.
too confusing. I don't want to watch half a movie and then whatever.
Was there anything that we talked about at the very beginning that we didn't get recorded that we wanted to record, or is that too long ago to remember?
That was too long ago.
Okay.
No, we talked about them. It was the dungeon crawler thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was the other thing? Yeah, and then there was the working for somebody at a convention thing.
Okay.
We talked about them.
Good.
We're all board gamed out.
Good. I just made sure. Just wanted to make sure that we touched on those. Um,
That's nuts. Watch season 1, then season 2, then the movie, then the return, season 3. All right. Okay.
all right, there you go.
I trust Aeon on this stuff.
Well, he's probably got a better memory of it, definitely than mine.
Yeah, I like my memory's pretty terrible. There have been movies I've started watching and I've been like, oh no, I've definitely seen this. I just had no recollection of it before. I thought I hadn't seen it, but I have. It's the worst. Getting old. Boo.
I wish I could say that it was an old thing. It's gotten worse as old, but it's always been a Mo thing for sure. My memory's always
Yeah.
been fucked.
I've got such good memory of like things that, up until I was like 26 or something. And then everything between then and here is way harder to remember. Way harder. It's like I can remember basically all the dialogue from any like Ben Stiller movie that I watched before I turned 26.
Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah,
admit
like
that.
dumb, like Zoolander quotes, like dumb shit like that, like meme stuff. I can remember that stuff. That's the sad part. Talking of amazing scores.
I'm halfway editing our first episode back, season
Yeah.
2, episode 1. So
Yeah.
hopefully that'll get released. Hopefully in the next week or two. Hopefully.
I don't even remember what we talked about because we recorded it a
Mm.
while ago now.
And then let me look at some of the list of what we might talk about next time. I came up with some crazy shit about.
You're giving a
filters.
teaser. You're going to give a teaser
I'm
of
gonna
it.
tease it.
Well, we have to talk about that article.
Yeah.
The
what was
watching your game rising up the VGG top 10.
Yeah,
talk
what
about
was the
that.
name of that? It was Board Game Wire did a fucking article, and basically the article talks about fucking games going up the fucking scale and like acting like they're an announcer, talking about like so and so's edging out something for like spot 10, and that
like it's a race, like it's a horse race or something.
right, and that spawned this interesting conversation about like at different times when we watched the BG scale fucking rating and what it meant to us and shit like that. And then also during COVID, watching those marble races during COVID.
Yeah.
Did you watch those?
No.
Oh shit, you loser.
I didn't even know they were a thing until you told me. I missed out. I can't believe what was I doing during COVID? I wasn't watching marble racing.
You should have watched.
Ian said my memory's dumb. I forgot a whole person once. Got a message on Facebook from someone I used to know in college, and I had completely forgotten that person existed.
I've done that. Oh, dude, that is the worst. Like during the last few months, like hanging out with people and people telling me, "Hey, you remember me? We used to hang out and blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Are you sure that was me? I don't think that was me." Yeah, when you were back in high school and when I was and I was like, "I think you implanted yourself into my life because."
Oh man,
you were
Ian
such an
said she
NPC.
sent me a photo of a letter I had written her. Very bizarre.
Holy
Ooh, was it a
shit.
love letter?
Holy shit,
a
that's
letter.
fucked up.
No, that's interesting. Letters.
Oh man. Oh dude, did I ever tell you? Okay, so we need to leave soon, but did I ever tell you? Okay, so I had crushes when I had crushes in middle school, and I knew that the difference between like me, like these crushes were people that I didn't really know, and that's like there's some philosophers that talk about that. But anyway, so I didn't know her well enough to know her as a person, so this crush was more of a I don't know you. These are the things I imagine about you, whatever. And
right. Crush. Yeah. That's what crushes are,
crush
right?
Material, right?
Just
yeah.
Make it up.
One of the ways that I would deal with the crushes is that I would write them a letter, like explaining who I was and that I had a crush on them. I didn't say crush, but I like you, whatever, and then write this fucking letter, right?
This is
but
funny.
I never gave it to them. I would just write this letter, and it was just
and you'd
for
feel
me.
Better.
Yeah, and
you'd have some crush closure.
Well, okay, so you write it with the intentions of maybe I'll give it to him. By the time you finish writing, you realize how ridiculous this whole fucking thing is. And like you write some sense into your brain that like, oh shit, I was almost a psycho. She
Yeah,
would
well,
have
you
got,
definitely don't give it to them
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
I would have come up like by the time you finish, you're like, oh, I would have gave this to her, and I would have come up like a fucking psycho. I was a fucking weirdo. Can imagine you're walking along and some dude you never know with a bunch of pimples gives you a goddamn fucking
Gives you
gives you a
a
note, and they
letter.
fucking tell you the proclaiming their like for you. I don't say
Wait,
love
I
because they
think
were
that's
probably.
what Ian did. So just go
Well, I'm
easy.
not saying he did that, but I'm just saying in my scenario, proclaiming that you were interested in, and who knows, you're a kid, you like holding their hand. What the fuck are you gonna do from here? Like what's the
Yeah.
next
Where's it
stage?
gonna go? Where's it gonna
Right
go?
now you're
Not
gonna
gonna get married.
embarrassingly like try to avoid each other now. What's
Yeah.
gonna happen next? So anyway, so I would write these, and I would write them like in the back of a notebook or whatever. I had forgotten that I'd done that,
Oh
because I
no.
just did it every once in a while, and I
No,
remember
no, no.
friends
You can't
hanging
forget
out.
evidence like that. You
Yeah,
can't.
yeah. So
No.
I'm just hanging out with friends, and we're in my room just like playing board games, listening to music and shit. And then I get to see one of my friends reading one of those notes.
Oh no.
And what do? You act like you don't notice. You act like you don't like. You can't run and
Yeah,
grab it
you
and
don't
like
freak out. You just act cool. You gotta go. Like, I don't care.
yeah, fuck
I
it.
don't care.
Yeah, this is normal. You're not normal. You should write letters.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
That's
it
so
was
funny.
it was pretty bad. So I don't know if like they went and told the person. I don't even know if that person's name was even on the letter. And if it was, it definitely didn't have last names. I'm bad enough at spelling. I'm not gonna fucking make up somebody's last name on there. Lucky to have their first name. If it was on there, I don't remember. I just remember dealing with
Yeah.
the shame.
Yep. Yeah, that was a mistake letting that
Evidence like
exist
that.
in the
What
world.
I was an amateur
Yeah.
at best. At best.
Yeah.
Oh,
Ian said he used to write a lot of letters when he was younger. It's weird to see your own handwriting and say, "Hey, can't wait to see you," and not remember that person. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
okay. So this reminds me, well, not of what Ian said, but what I said is I remember writing lyrics for our first demo. We're doing our death metal thing, and we're writing lyrics, and it's in the style of we're new, so we don't know how to write lyrics. So it's in the style of several other bands, and they're very out there, like really out there. We're trying to put ourselves in the minds of demons and serial killers and whatnot. So every song is like really, for our age, is kind of fucked up, right? And then I remember having those notebooks because those notebooks had uh music writing in there and having the music in there, not lyrics, but actual, our chords and what we were going to do, and just song ideas for how it should be structured or whatever. And I remember getting married and us having bringing all the equipment to the house and putting it in the extra room, and then my ex-wife now getting it and looking through there, and me putting that like running over there, grabbing it, like, no, don't read that. We were kids when we wrote that. Like, you don't want you don't want that in your head. And it caused the biggest fight because she thought there was
What?
current
Why?
girls in there. There was girls in there or something. I was like, no, there's not any girls in there. It's just I'm
Oh,
embarrassed of the work. We were kids.
right. Right.
And I never lived that down. I shouldn't have run over there and grabbed
You
it.
should start, you know, throwing things out, Mo. This is your problem. You're always like, no, I've got to keep everything. Well, this is what
I know.
happens.
More
This is
garbage.
what happens.
More garbage.
Yeah. Look at Caesar. He's cute. He's like wagging his tail like crazy over there.
Oh,
He's all excited about something over there.
he might be trying to jump on the other dog.
Oh no.
He might be.
Oh no.
So we don't need to
Caesar.
see that. I know he's
Oh
gross.
man.
I don't know that's what he's doing, but
You
usually
can't
that's
see
what that
Cicero because
means.
Cicero just looks like a shadow.
Mm.
Oh, we didn't talk about how good Animal Well is, but we can talk about that on.
Yeah, we're gonna do it on the podcast,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
we'll record hopefully soonish.
Awesome.
Awesome. Anything that they said before we have to leave or go or anything like that?
No, that was it. Just forgetting a whole person. I don't think I've forgotten a whole person before.
I definitely have.
I've forgotten songs and bands and stuff, and then you hear them. You hear a song, and you're just like, "Whoa, I remember this." It's like instant, like time warp.
Yeah, the worst is when you you forget your favorite song, and then you go to try to like remember the lyrics, and like I don't remember these lyrics at all, but I remember the way it was done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird when you're listening to it and then it's like filling in, the memories filling in all of a
Yeah.
sudden. Yeah.
Or the worst is, or how about whenever you watch a movie that you've read the book for, or vice versa, and then you realize, oh, this is that one thing. I already know the plot to this thing.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that happened to me. I was watching The Handmaiden
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, hang on a minute, because I had no idea it was based on the Fingersmith book. I had absolutely no idea. And I'm
Mm.
like watching this movie and I'm like, hang on, I know this plot. Like, yeah. And then Googled it and sure enough, it's like, oh yeah, it's based on such and such. It took me a while. Ian said I've definitely had that experience there. Yeah, yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird hearing a song that you haven't heard for like 15 years or 20 years or something. And then you just like, boom, warped back. Also, playing a video game that you haven't played since you were a kid as well. It's kind of a weird.
I have that going on right now. I'm re-going through the original
Final
Dragon
Fantasy
Warrior
ones, right? Oh,
right now.
Dragon
Well,
Warrior. Okay.
Dragon Warrior, which is now Dragon Quest, but when it was brought to America, that name was taken, so they had to use Dragon Warrior. So Dragon Warrior 1, I'm real close to beating, and I play it like 1 or 2 hours a day or whatever. But yeah, the shit that I
Where do you
remember,
get all your time, Mo? Where do you get it? Yeah, the Handmaiden film.
I work 9 hours
The
straight, and
Korean
I
one or
usually
the
have a
Korean?
lot of time during that 9 hours.
Yeah.
That's where I do all my other stuff,
Yeah. 9
and I
hours at
don't
work is a
sleep a whole
long
lot.
time.
Yeah, and I don't sleep a lot, so yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you liked the movie? Yeah, I thought the movie was really good. I thought the movie was really good. It was different from the book. There was some things that weren't in the movie. Okay, well, the setting was completely different because the book's set in like London in 1840 something, something like that. Anyway, there was some really interesting parts in the book that weren't in the movie that I really wanted to. Oh, Caesar, what a smushy face. Yeah, but it was cool. It was a whole different. It was a whole different thing. I liked it. You should watch that movie, babe. I think you'd like it.
Yeah, yeah, it's on my to watch list for sure.
Hmm. Watch Mother and Memories of Murder if you haven't seen them.
I've seen Mother, but I haven't seen Memories of Murder.
Hmm. I always have this movie. When am I going to see these movies? On the treadmill, I guess. That's what I usually do that. But I want to play Animal Well and I want to play Baldur's Gate and I got to get the Elden Ring DLC. And yeah.
Then there's all the stuff we're working on and
No,
writing a
there
rule
isn't,
book
Ian.
and
That's not in it. That's a totally different thing. So that was interesting. The guy was that dude was a little bit different. The bad guy in it. Anyway, we better go.
all right.
I gotta eat. I gotta eat something. And yeah, it was. I thought that was really cool. Actually, I liked the octopus monster creature thing. I think that was a good addition. Anyway, sorry, you don't know what I'm talking about now. What are you gonna do right
I
now?
don't know. We're just gonna get off the thing and figure that out.
Okay. All right. Thanks for joining, everybody.
Yeah,
Lachlan,
thanks a
Ian.
lot. This was totally impromptu, so
Yeah, yeah. And next time we're gonna go through some playtesting stuff, I think.
yeah. Well, we're supposed to get on the normal time that we normally get on, and then we'll any bonus time
Yeah.
like this is bonus time.
Yep.
And see what's up. We got a lot of work to do.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
See everybody later.
Bye.
How do you turn this damn thing off? Bye.